February council meeting here, 2026. We're well into the year now, and Fáilte Roimh Gullier, Gujian Crennu Shaw, me Fiara. So we'll have the agenda in front of us, members. It is a 21 item agenda. So you'll have obviously read your papers in advance of tonight's meeting. And a few preliminaries before I go into the agenda proper. The first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to welcome to the public gallery this evening the Fermanagh South Tyrone MP, Pat Cullen. Pat had a series of engagements here throughout the afternoon. I'd like to welcome Pat and her colleague Katrina. So you're both very welcome. Fáilte Roimh Birch, thank you. Okay. Next item I want to say in my preliminary comments is that in the course of the month there on Tuesday the 27th of January, grateful for those attending the meeting with the Poll Deeds, the Irish Language Commissioner, was here in the town hall. It was attended well, by group leaders and by groups. There was a good substantive discussion about that. Now, also issued an invite to Lee Reynolds in his new role as Ulster Scots Commissioner, and Lee Reynolds has taken up the invitation and is going to meet with us in Omagh on Friday the 20th of February, so later this month. Again, similar approach, group leaders and relevant groups locally will be invited, and that's that. Second thing I want to say is, speaking as chair of the council and speaking personally as well, I welcome very much the fact that a stop was put on the Reval 26 exercise. People are confused, how is their rates struck and what's the input of the council, all that kind of stuff, and we do our absolute best as a local government authority to keep the rates as low as possible while not compromising on good service delivery. But I personally made contact with leaders in the field there of hospitality at that time and had good conversations with them and fully agreed with them that they would suffer in the hospitality sector a hugely disproportionate impact. And I was glad to see the Reval stopped in its tracks. And obviously that has implications, like we don't have our planned rates meeting this Thursday evening coming, but we do in the near future, and that'll be confirmed in the course of the meeting. I want to communicate to members, maybe most of you already know, but there's another SOAS public rally, Save Our Acute Services public rally in Enniskillen. It's this coming Sunday, the 8th of February at 3 p.m. At the Diamond here, and I plan to attend. So we were contacted by SOAS asking that either through my role here or Alison's, that we would communicate that message to the councillors who are present here this evening. And I'm conscious too, of course, we're joined online by a number of councillors, others in the room here at the Town Hall in Enniskillen. Tuesday the 17th of February will be that in-person event that has been flagged up for some time now to further explain and examine the ICLRD report. And finally, in my preliminary remarks, I'm looking now to Councillor Thompson and Councillor Kelly, and I want to allow you in briefly after I make these comments on an Omagh-related matter of importance. This morning, Errol, Catherine and I met at the bridge. Isn't that a nice one? It's like a song, isn't it? But we met at the bridge in Campsie, or Lower Market Street, more accurately, and we were showing around, commercial premises which tend to get flooded when the river is high. There was a near miss last week, and we found ourselves crisscrossing the road and in and out of premises variously for an hour, and we viewed the arches under the bridge, and there's a dry arch there. Now, it's my understanding that for progress to be made to prevent further flooding at that location, that DFA Rivers would want to invest as quickly as possible in a pump there in the dry arch, and that would go a long way to alleviating the potential threat of future flooding at that location. So I want to propose that we write to DFA Rivers and seek a timeline for the installation of that pump. I think a hydrologist has been deployed to assess what exactly is needed there, but would like to know when. And I'll go now to Councillor Thompson. Then I'll go to Councillor Irvine. He might have a declaration of interest.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'll have to declare an interest being a member of the Drainage Council with regard to your proposal, but I won't leave the chamber. But I'm not taking part in the vote. Thank you.
No problem. And I won't be opening this up as such because we're moving into the meeting proper, but I want to give due respect to Councillor Thompson and Councillor Kelly, who were able to join me this morning. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I think you've outlined it very well there. We spent the hour with Paddy Devlin this morning in Lower Market Street. And those of us who were, I suppose, born and raised in Omagh know what had happened there all over the years, from as a child of the 60s, 70s, and then the big flood of 87. We knew what took place there, and many premises destroyed over all those years. But Paddy gave us a good tour this morning of what is required there, and to do with the pump and the dry arch and all of that. So I'm happy to second, as you've outlined, Chair, that we write to DFA Rivers on this very serious matter and get a timeline as to when that will be done. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Earl. Catherine?
Thank you, Chair. It was eye-opening to attend the site meeting this morning at Lower Market Street. Business owners and some possible residents in this part of Omagh are living in fear when rain is forecast, and in Ireland that is almost daily. It is hugely important that the flooding issue is addressed as soon as possible.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so we've done that and we're about to move on into the apologies section of the meeting, which is item 1. So obviously I go to Councillor Coyle. Corleor Nagila Cole.
Thanks, Chair. No apologies from Sinn Féin.
Okay. And then I go now to Victor, Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Roy Crawford.
Okay. Councillor Robinson, Paul.
No apologies, Councillor Mahon's supposed to be online.
Right, okay. Don't think he's joined us just yet, but hopefully he does. Yep. Fine, thank you. Okay, so I think I've covered, everybody else is covered here in terms of attendance. Josephine and Garvin online too. Thank you. So that's that. Now we're going to move till the next item on the agenda, which is item number 2, to confirm and sign the minutes of the council meeting held on the 13th of January. So we'll go through these for accuracy only at this time, not matters arising. So there would be as many as 20 pages in this document that we're going to go through now for accuracy only. So page 1, and then Lachanakadaw, page 2, 3, 4 and 5, 6 and 7, 8 and 9, 10 and 11, 12, 13. Obviously, I'm keeping an eye on the screen and in the chamber here. So 12 and 13, 14 and 15, 16 and 17, 18, 19 and 20. So I'd happily take a proposer. Councillor Thompson has proposed and Councillor Elliott has seconded. Caught my eye first, thank you. And that's agreed, members. So then, item 3 then, declarations of interest. So we'll look around the room. Councillor Ovens.
Thank you, Chair, and a few items for me. So it's items 4.1 and 4.2, and I'll leave the room whenever the legal letter's been talked about. And letters, or I think it's items of correspondence 11.7 and 11.8 in relation to the Cove inquiry.
Right. Thank you, Mark. Okay. Nobody online and nobody else in the chamber are declaring interest at this time. So we'll move now to matters arising from the full council meeting that was held on the 13th of January. Again, individually, page by page. So matters arising, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. Over to you, Alison.
So, Chair, thank you. Item 5.3, members, we have a number of pieces of correspondence in relation to Southwest Acute Hospital. So I'll just list those for you. Firstly, we have been copied into correspondence from the Western Trust in relation to the legal letter that had been received from SOAS solicitors acting on their behalf. Also attached then, Chair, are the various presentations that were presented by the Trust at our meeting on the 22nd of January. And then we have received a number of pieces of correspondence from SOAS which were circulated to members in advance of the informal meeting. So that's the cover letter, the statistical report, and the analysis of the statistical report. The copy of the information circulated to members also included a confidential email from the Director of Public Health in the Public Health Agency. That has been omitted just from the public record as it wasn't formally disclosed to us, but members have had sight of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hayes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to note the response from the Health Minister about the query that we asked back in last September about the nurses, and we finally got, it's finally been answered.
It's later in the correspondence, but I think I'll hear you now, Nolan.
Sorry, I thought it was on page 4.
Aye, it's after these letters. Alison, will you
Excuse
maybe
me, yeah.
explain?
Okay. So, sorry, Chair. So that relates to the second recommendations. We have the Western Trust letter as well on nursing, which is in the other folder. So we've the Minister and the Western Trust response. So it's the second resolution. So I suppose the hospital ones just were presented first, Chair. So we could maybe, if Councillor Hayes is content, come back after, just
That's
after
fine,
this item.
Okay, happy enough with that. Councillor Gannon.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm happy to either propose or second to note however you want to take that. Obviously, Councillor Hayes was in there. Obviously, we had that meeting with the Trust, and there's no doubt there's good things going on at the hospital as well, but obviously the main point of the meeting was around emergency general surgery. And you know, there was during that meeting I kind of challenged them in terms of what was said at the Assembly Health Committee, and it was nearly like they experienced a form of amnesia in what was said and what wasn't. You know, there was reference to that's not what the transcript says, but there is no official transcript of that Health Committee meeting, although it is there available to be watched online. And it was very clearly, I do want to state again, it was very clearly stated by the chair of the Western Trust in that Health Committee meeting. We knew the decision we would make when talking about the temporary consultation, which we know wasn't temporary. And when questioned, the chief executive was questioned about it wasn't a temporary removal, it was a immediate withdrawal, and permanent withdrawal was implied in that. He agreed with that statement. He said, I agree. And there's parts of the presentation that really struck me, you know, despite the line, despite incorrect information recently stated in public. I think obviously, given that this is going into legalities, that will probably resolve it. But I think the reason for this big change is because of legalities. And I do note that this letter is robust, would be one way to put it, in terms of how they're challenging CFR acute services in it. And at least, as I've said before, with legal action, if it goes ahead, there'll be transparency. Everything will be put out in the open, which I think is much needed and won't be questioned then. And what I would say is, between that Assembly Health Committee and them coming to us, there appeared to be, to me anyway, a clear change in the Trust's position. Okay, like, I was watching that Assembly Health Committee meeting, and I actually thought when they spoke, I was like, finally a bit of openness, honesty and transparency around this. And then I thought maybe there's a change here, an attitude and a change of approach. But then they came to us and they completely flipped on that, which was I thought disappointing. I thought maybe there was some progress to be made there. And look, we'll see what happens if and when it goes to court. But I think a judicial review would certainly make everything clear going forward, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And for the purpose of records, we're taking that Nolene has proposed a note and Adam is seconding that, but we'll be coming back to Nolene very much so on the nurses issue. But right now, I want to go to Councillor Deehan online, followed by Councillor Warrington in the room.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. Overall, I found the meeting with the Western Trust on the 22nd of January to contain much that was positive. Although I have to say that my impression is that it will be a major challenge to get reinstatement of emergency general surgery at the Southwest Acute Hospital. The Trust representatives cited many obstacles, including recruitment of staff, including interventional radiologists, the provision of ensuring that the new guidelines on the provision of emergency general surgery as stipulated by the Department of Health were fully met. And those revised guidelines are quite challenging. We emphasised, including yourself, Chair, the importance of the Southwest Acute Hospital, not only to Enniskillen and Fermanagh, but also to the people of Omagh and District, given that it is our acute hospital. So we are committed to retaining the status of that hospital as being a provider of emergency general surgery. Now, the Trust did emphasise their commitment to the Southwest Acute Hospital, and in particular, their determination that that hospital would be retained as a 24-hour Type 1 emergency department, full maternity provision, and full resuscitation and ICU facilities in the hospital. That was reassuring. But also what I thought was most reassuring was their commitment to work on the cross-border issues, which I feel are essential in maintaining the status of the Southwest Acute Hospital. So they are working with organisations like CELTA and COT. And I think that as a council, when we are putting forward our arguments in support of the Southwest Acute Hospital, we need to keep the focus very heavily on the cross-border cooperation in terms of the provision of acute medical and surgical services, Chair. So there is a big job of work to be done, but I don't think it's an impossible task to achieve with determination and cooperation from all bodies involved. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much. Josephine, move now to Victor.
Thank you, Chair. Well, obviously the last meeting with the Trust, it was a more positive meeting than what we've been used to previously. And certainly the Trust did seem to be more engaged with us as councillors, and there was a lot more that we could look at positively surrounding that. Obviously the increase in elective surgeries within the SWA is putting a nice shine on what's going on there at the minute. But I think as councillors and of people in our area, we have to stay focused on the main objective, and that is to the return of emergency general surgery. So overall, it was positive, but there's a lot more to do. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Victor. Go now to Eddie. Councillor Roof.
Thanks, Chair. And yeah, I agree with what's been said so far. There was definitely a greater level of positivity overall. However, there was some frustrations through the meeting at times. I did give the Trust an opportunity to try and put the best foot forward and bring forward what a plan would look like and the costings of that plan for the restoration of emergency general surgery. And I got quite a what I thought condescending response of an explanation of the tender process, which I think every councillor here understands. But they did say that basically if they were asked or instructed by the Department of Health that they would create that plan. So can I ask if we can write to the Department of Health, I think it was specifically the SPPG, and in the context of the Minister has asked for a plan from the Western Trust for the future of the South West Acute Hospital, could they be asked to put full meat on the bone in terms of a plan of what the restoration of emergency general surgery, the SWA, would look like, what the costs would be for the reinstatement, and what the annual costs would be for the running of that, including the likes of interventional radiology and any other services that would be required for that full restoration. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Roof, there's a good mechanism. You know, if the trust are saying we're awaiting instruction from the department, we'll then invite the department to give that instruction. Okay, thank you. Councillor Coyle.
Thanks, Chair. One of the things that I asked at that meeting was around if they could bring back a report on all the projects, programmes and initiatives cross-border going on that had been maybe have happened over the last 10, 15 years and that are going on now, and maybe some that they've got planned for the near future. They didn't feed back to me on that, and I'm wondering if we could write to them and ask for an update on that, because I think it's really important for us to have that information. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Coyle. Yep.
Chair, thank you. Maybe just in response to Councillor Coyle's comments and Councillor Roof's proposal as well, Chair. So there were a number of requests made during the meeting for information and also in relation to the costings. As members will know, it was an informal meeting, so didn't have any decision-making status. So if members are content, we would now formally proceed to action those. I did speak to the Trust today, and I know they're in the process of collating information, so we'll certainly forward it as soon as it's received, but we would write formally now on the back of this evening's meeting if you're content to do so.
Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Chair. No, that's okay. I was going to come in to second Councillor Coyle's proposal to contact them again, so no, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'll get a seconder then for Councillor Roof's proposal. Councillor McCann, again, thank you. I might want to make a proposal myself now. Following on from an earlier meeting in the afternoon with Pat Cullen, Pat helpfully told us that the Joint Oireachtas Committee for the implementation of the Good Friday Agreement is actually looking at all Ireland cross-border health issues. I propose that we send the ICLRD report and seek to present to that Good Friday Agreement Committee on the cross-border potential of shared health services in this whole region. So that just follows on from our afternoon meeting. Do I have a seconder for that? Nolan, thank you. Councillor Hayes. Okay. And that's agreed, members, those various proposals. Okay. So I want to go now till, okay.
And Chair, just before you hand back to Councillor Hayes, to note, we also in the other folder have a response from the Western Trust on the same matter in relation to nurses. So we've both the department and the Trust briefing on this.
Okay. And Alison, can I test you out? What essentially is the Trust saying?
Well, I suppose they're providing maybe the more localised examples in relation to the queries around the employment opportunities. So it's done more in the style of a general briefing as opposed to responding to the direct queries. But I think based on it, Chair, it would appear there have been quite a significant number of queries on this issue from elected members.
Okay, thank you. 9.5. Okay, go now to Councillor Hayes. Okay, Nolan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as I said, I was just coming in to say that I'm glad that that's query that was sent in September has finally been answered both by the Minister and the Western Trust. And I appreciate the apology as well from the Minister for taking so long, because it really is unacceptable for waiting that long. Any query from this local elected government authority really should be given the respect it deserves, and answers should be provided as promptly as possible. And I would say the Western Trust also were very I asked them directly on the meeting on the 22nd about this, and they were able to answer that pretty much on the spot, more or less, and that was much appreciated. So I'm just coming in to say happy to note both that correspondence. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so I think Adam was offering to second earlier in the process there. Thank you. So we'll take that. Okay. Okay, so we'll return Councillor Ovens to the room now. If anybody wishes to notify him. Bernard seems to be quickest to respond. So we're at. Aye, good. Right. Page 5.
Thank you, Chair. Just to advise members, we've received a letter now from the Department of Social Protection, and this is in relation to the habitual residence test. We did have the response last month from the DFC.
Okay, Councillor Coyle.
Thanks, Chair, and it's great to have received word back from Jennifer McNeill TD and the Minister of Communities, but neither response helps the families, especially around the border areas, when it comes to giving care to family members or friends, or just keeping people in the communities in their own home. And this is another important reason why there should be an all-island health and social care system. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Proposer to note. I'll take a proposer to note. Okay, thanks, Debbie. And a seconder to note, Councillor Robinson, thank you. Okay, and agreed members. So then page 6.
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Just we have a response from the impartial reporter. This is in relation to the representations we'd made regarding Kiva's law, and we did write to the 4 local papers in this regard, Chair.
Okay, and again, just a proposer and a seconder to note if you're so inclined. Councillor McColgan, thank you. Proposed and seconded. Councillor Robinson again, thanks. And agreed members to note. And then I'll move on through now. Page 7. Page 8. Okay.
Just on page 8, Chair, a couple of letters of response from DFI, firstly in relation to the concerns about Hospital Road and the absence of a planned programme around maintenance and specifically resurfacing. And then separately, Chair, we've had a letter, we have requested a meeting with the Divisional Roads Manager, but you'll see that Daniel Healy is moving on to another position on a temporary basis, and he has advised us of his replacement in the interim.
Okay. And I think we'll couple the Kevlin Road as well. Hospital Road and Kevlin Road have gained a lot of attention here for the state of the surface. Now, I want to go till Councillor Seamus Green. This might be your urgent and relevant business item, so happy to go now, Seamus.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thanks for letting me in. I had contacted you about AOB, but I thought maybe this would be a good juncture to raise this, and I suppose it's an ongoing problem. It's as bad now as ever I remembered, and that's the pothole epidemic that's hitting Ayr and East anyway. I'm sure other DEs, it's the same one. But this last number of weeks I have been out on the roads and people sending me photographs and that of potholes. Some of them I've seen large potholes in my time, but these are bigger and deeper than normal. Rural Fermanagh roads, and I'm sure rural Tyrone roads, are an absolute disgrace at the minute. I was looking up, comparing it to third world countries, and there did come a list up of where in third world places where the roads are better. We had Morocco was one of them, Rwanda was another one, Vietnam, Colombia, to name but 4, has a better road infrastructure than we have. Now, I'm not criticising any particular party or anything. This has been a problem that's gone on for generations. I suppose a long time ago when I used to be going out to dances and discos and that, which is many moons ago, the roads in the south was similar to what they are here in the north now, and it was just like, again, third world conditions. The roads in the south now are miles upon miles better than they are in the north. And so my proposal is that, well, the divisional manager has changed so that we first of all write to the man that's taken over, is Mr. Hughes?
Yep, Stephen Hughes.
Stephen Hughes. And that we also write to the Minister of the Department of Infrastructure. We did a number of weeks or months ago present a document to the department showing how we had been underfunded in our road infrastructure in the Fermanagh and Ohm area. I would like us to ask how that is progressing. Is there anything where the department is considering upping the allocation of money in this area to try and compensate for the decades of underfunding that has been? And so that's my proposal. And of course, to the divisional roads manager, what exactly is he doing at the minute to solve this pothole crisis that's happening across our district? So them's my proposal for them letters.
Okay. And you'll propose to note as well, just to be helpful on the administration point. Thank you. Councillor Withers, then Councillor Deehan.
Yeah, Gary Margaret Kelly, thank you, Chair, and I'll second the noting of the correspondence and also Councillor Green's proposals there. Like other members, I'm sure across the chamber, we've all received calls about the condition of our roads, which seem to be at an all-time low. That, of course, is not this year or last year or the last couple of years. That's a result of historic underfunding from the British government. And I suppose we have seen some progress just last year when the Sinn Féin finance ministers have got a new negotiation in terms of the fiscal framework, which has resulted in more funding for the North. But that, of course, won't even touch the sides of what's needed to repair the damage that's been done to public services for many years. We know as well road service capacity has been reduced for the last 15 years following austerity, and their ability to even respond now to these issues, whether it's storms and all of those types of things, the staff just isn't there. And again, we're dependent on subcontractors, all of those issues. So all of that's just impacting on us. So I would have another proposal on top of what Councillor Greens said there, that obviously in the short term, that we would write to the Shared Island Fund. So they obviously have supported cross-border projects like the A5. There's €600 million committed to that. They've also supported collaboration in other areas to enhance capacity of our fire and rescue service on a cross-border basis. So just a request for engagement with them on if they can explore with the Department for Infrastructure on what support they might be able to give us and the department in terms of alleviating the pressure we're facing. And that's from a resource point of view and as well as funding, obviously, because it's clear that not only is it a funding issue, even in terms of monitoring rounds, things like that there where money can be redistributed at the end of the year, the capacity just isn't there. So if we can just write a letter to the Shared Island Fund as well and see if that can be explored. And obviously that's a short-term resolution, ultimately until we've control in our own hands over economic and political affairs and not depending on public spending decisions made in London. That's a time whenever we'll only see real delivery on our public services. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Withers. And Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I want to support Councillor Green's proposal and I'll second Councillor Withers' proposal. I think it's an excellent idea that we should seek support from whatever source may be available to us. I think I may have mentioned at a previous council meeting that it never fails to amaze me that the Department for Infrastructure Roads Division have not yet appreciated the toll that our winter weather takes on our roads, particularly the country roads that are so badly affected in our council area. They really should ring fence a very significant fund to deal with this, because it's the same story every single winter. Potholes that cause undue damage to motor vehicles. And I'm sure the cost of having a compensation paid to those vehicle owners is very significant. So I do think that we need to keep the pressure on, because it's a recurring problem. It causes great distress and inconvenience to our constituents. And I think it definitely needs to be tackled head on. And finally, Chair, may I say that I want to acknowledge and thank the work of Daniel Healy, our Western Divisional Roads Manager. You know, at one of our last meetings with him, he did deliver what he said he would, some significant projects in our district council area, including the very significant remedial works which are currently ongoing in Killyclogher. So he was as good as his word in that regard. And I do want to wish Mr. Hughes all the best in his new post. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Deehan. Significant interest from councillors when it comes to the state of roads. You know, nobody will be surprised about that. I'm aware that our director, John Hughes, was helpful yesterday till Councillor Devine Gallagher in a Carrickmore related matter. You know, and even Councillor Devine Gallagher and John were agreeing, I think, on the best way of contacting DFA roads. You know, maybe at some point, John, just remind us, you know, of the best way of getting the best result from DFA roads.
Thank you, Chair. And just very briefly, on the NI Direct website, DFI Roads have an online reporting tool where a range of defects, hazards, the roads, whether it's gullies, overgrown hedges, trees, ice, snow, that they can all be reported by the person that encounters it. And you mentioned Councillor Devine Gallagher and recently Councillor McNulty, I know, had been in touch, and this was just by way of sometimes there can be an apprehension that online reporting tools such as these, that they aren't being monitored by DFI, but in particularly the Councillor McNulty had contacted me, I think it was a Thursday or a Friday afternoon after one of the recent storms to highlight a particularly dangerous structure, and within 15 minutes of it being reported on the DFI portal, I got a phone call from an officer within DFI and between DFI and council staff that they were able to get that resolved later the same afternoon. So really the online reporting portal is probably the most effective way to make sure that accurate information. It also allows people to go in and see if other people within the area have reported the same defect. And I think certainly when there are defects like that, the more people that are reporting them, I imagine that carries even more weight then when it's being reviewed within the local offices.
Okay, thanks very much, John. I have an unusual proposal myself. I thought about it this week. Castle Barracks in Enniskillen and County Hall in Omagh are essentially the headquarters of DFA, but you wouldn't necessarily know if you drove past. I was thinking of this in the context of the County Hall in Omagh. It's a very, very prominent building in Omagh. Nobody knows that's where DFA roads are located. Can I propose that we ask DFA roads to put a sign up on their building declaring that is where they are located? And one of the reasons I'm asking for this is I was picking up correspondence at the Grange the other morning, and beside an envelope for me was a letter addressed DFA Roads, The Grange, Lisna Mallard, Omagh, County Tyrone. Then that has to be redirected to DFA Roads. But it was over 50 years ago. It was the 50th anniversary when local government lost remit for roads, when the McCrory report on local government, I think it was 1972. Stephen, you'd be academic. I think it was 90. So 50 years on, you know, in a way, DFA are half benefiting from the perception that this council has direct remit for roads, which we don't. So my proposal is that both headquarters within Omagh and Enniskillen, that they increase and improve the signage of their buildings and on their buildings so that dissatisfied customers, as well as contacting us, and we will help them. We are happy to help out, very much so, but that the people will know directly where to go. Because in Omagh, it is the Tyrone County Hall, and in Enniskillen it is Castle Barracks. So I wonder, do I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Anthony Feedy caught me eye first. Castle Barracks, what would it be called, Victor? Okay, so again, let's demystify where they're located for the benefit of people who have communication desires to contact DFA Roads directly. So with that, I'll move on. I've got a seconder. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I think the year you were looking for, if my memory serves me right, and I'm old enough to remember it,
Yeah.
I think it was 1973, actually.
73.
But we'll see. Just with regard to the letter from Daniel Healy regarding Hospital Road and Kelvin Road, as we said at our last meeting, Chair, it's exactly the same letter as received from the Minister and from the officials at the local level, which is still disappointing. But I'm looking forward now to the new financial year to see what can be done with these two roads. And that's the hospital, again, I'll reinforce the point, from the Swinger Bars roundabout to Woodvale Avenue Junction, and the Kelvin Road from the junction, which was Kelvin Avenue at Christian Brothers Grammar School, to Dergmany Heights.
Yeah. Okay.
And that covers that, Chair. And
you're going to have an opportunity, Earl, on Tuesday, the 10th of March at 4 p.m. For a meeting with Stephen Hughes, the Divisional Roads Manager, acting at that time, So we will have an opportunity. That's a date for your diary there.
I don't know if that's been noted, Chair.
Okay.
That particular letter.
Okay. Yep.
I
Okay.
propose to note it.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Proposed. Thank you. And there was a seconder to note, or was there not? I'm going to go now to Councillor Thomas O'Reilly again. Thomas had written to me in advance of the meeting, and this might be the suitable juncture.
Thank you, Chair. And if you need a seconder to note, I'm happy to do that. Can I bring this discussion about roads to a very local and a very pointed area, and that is our second largest town in County Fermanagh, Lisnaskea. It is an absolute disgrace. We complain continuously, and rightly so, about all the potholes throughout the many roads across our district. But when it comes to the actual main street of your second largest town in the county, I think it is absolutely disgraceful that you have to play dodgem with the potholes to navigate from one end of the town to the other. And bear in mind, Chair, that is also a main arterial route to the south of Ireland. So not alone are we risking the lives of our own local citizens here, we're risking the lives of those that venture on business, on tourism, to visit family and friends, all of the rest of the reasons for journeys, not to mention medical and all the rest. And when you have not alone the potholes where you have to navigate, but you have the manholes protruding up out of the ground and for months on end. So that in itself is a major problem very, very locally, and I think we have to shout very loudly about that. If it was some of the other bigger towns throughout the place, this would have been fixed much, much sooner. And we have the new divisional manager in for 9 months to take over from Daniel, and we'll see what can be done there with our meeting on the 10th. But there's a major cost here to business and everything else that we are really not factoring in when we see this amount of disruption, and not alone to consider the accidents that's happening here. Fermanagh, we know, has bad ground conditions, and when we put a road down in other counties, it stays put. In Fermanagh, it doesn't. And within 6 months of putting a road down, a year at most, you can see it crumbling and reverting back to its original state. And that is the main road from Lisnaskea through Newton Butler and into Cavan and on to Dublin. And that is something that we must face down here and say enough's enough with our main towns being left in this condition. And can I say, Chair, that while John outlined the system of reporting to DFI, it is not working, Chair. We continuously, first of all, we have a mandate from the public here to be the voice, each and every one of us in this chamber, to be the voice of the public. And that, I feel, is not getting due respect. When you try to contact DFI, you do not get a response. When you put in a complaint or an issue to be dealt with, you do not get a response. Now, we took this as far as the Permanent Secretary, and the Deputy Permanent Secretary came here and told us, did we want because they're short of staff, do we want them to do their work or talk to us? I expect them to talk to us while doing their work. And that is not too much to ask for elected representatives from local government. And I think that creeping disrespect for local government is being borne out here with that lack of communication back to the councillors, Chair.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
Councillor. Thanks very much. Councillor Dunley, Stephen Dunley.
Thank you very much, Chair. And likewise, I just want to express my dissatisfaction and indeed the disappointment that residents in the Kevlin Road and Hospital Road areas feel at this most recent confirmation that there won't be some action on the state of the roads for some time yet. And my hope is that we will get a point in the new financial year where these areas will be prioritised. And not to rehash everything that was said at the last meeting, I do just wish to reinforce the fact that the Hospital Road in particular is a fast-growing community in Omagh, with the relevant implications that that has for the traffic volumes and the issues that that creates in terms of the road. But I do also just want to raise some correspondence that I received just a couple of days ago from a resident on the Kevlin Road who just wanted to highlight very particularly that the stretch of Kevlin Road, which is close to the entry to Dergmany Heights, is getting to a position where local road users are genuinely concerned about damaging their car. And I think that it goes back to this fundamental principle that we always talk about, which is that we are concerned about the short-termist thinking, which leads to additional and greater costs down the line, whether it be in terms of compensation or whatever it may well be. And so I hope that DFI is able to get its ducks in a row, because these communities in Omagh, the Hospital Road, the Kevlin Road, represent a vast number of people within our community, and their needs are not being served adequately right now. And I hope that this can be addressed in the new financial year.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Feely, Anthony.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, and I wasn't going to start coming in and rehashing everything was said, but I'm going to say a few things anyway, because I took a few notes here. And what I was going to say, Thomas has said a lot already, but around there in West Town, they are desperate at the minute altogether, and especially after the frost. And as John has told us there about reporting them online, I do both ways, ring up and online. That online has got to be a pure disaster altogether. And after about 2 weeks, that potholes are took off it, and you have to report them again. And I've reported some of the potholes on my own road about 3 times. And you're right, Barry, people contact me about them and they still think it's the council. And try to explain it's not, it's DFI road, but it's a pure waste of time trying to tell them that. The thing is us, and they say you can't even get the potholes fixed on your own road. And it's that bad at the minute around Garrison, Derrygonney, and heading up the Belcoo Road. I'm not going to say all the roads here today. And just in fact, the pothole on my own road, a lady hit it the other day, and she came into me for a bit of help to get the wheels sorted out and stuff. And I told her to claim. If people just keeps on claiming, I know it's a big form, you have to claim it's in about 7 pages, but if people does claim it and they might get some of the money back for the damage they've done. I know it's not a great way to be, but that's the only way to go about it, because they've gone past fixing potholes now. The whole roads have to be resurfaced. I know there's no money for that, but they've got that bad. And as Thomas has said, there are a lot of bog roads and bad roads on the water and stuff. Even the Lockshore Road from Beleek to Garrison, or from Beleek to Enniskillen, that was fixed about 6 months ago, and it's subsiding already. I see people had stuff up on Facebook yesterday. So I just wanted to come in and say that we are fighting for the people, but it's not our fault. They won't fix them. But it's very frustrating is what I'm going to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Well, certainly just to agree with a lot of the previous speakers, and I'm not going to go over it all again. Look, I think DFI have to look at their systems that they use for the repairs. There has to be a better mechanism that they can use, because they're sending guys out, they're marking potholes in roads, and a lot of the time when they go back out again, the blinking marking's gone. Plus, if they go out to repair, and this happened, I was told by a constituent the other day, they went out and repaired 3 or 4 potholes on a certain road, and there was another number of potholes very close beside them that completely ignored them because they probably at that time they didn't meet the criteria for filling them. But with the weather conditions we've had at the moment, like they're going to be as bad as ever anyway in 2 or 3 months again anyway. As for the reporting systems, I actually take a lot of photographs of potholes, and when I'm sending in a report to DFI, I email it in along with the photographs to both the divisional manager and to the Fermanagh office, and I know certainly they get them right away because I've spoke to the office several times after I've sent the emails in. But the roads, like probably I'm into my 13th year as a councillor, and I think this certainly has to be the worst, and I've no hair anymore. This has to be the worst year of complaints that I've had on roads. There's just ongoing day and daily people on about roads.
Yeah, thank you.
As I say to them, unless I go out with a shovel and a bucket of tar, nothing more I can do.
You reminded me there of Paddy McGowan. Paddy McGowan used to say, when I first raised this, I had black hair. Paddy McGowan used to say that, didn't he? Okay, now, Paul again contacted me prior to the meeting, so this is probably where it'll fit in now, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. It's to do with potholes as well, but I'm not going to go over the whole thing again. It's already been covered, and I agree with a lot of stuff that has been said. There's another issue as well, is the water tables hasn't been cleaned along the rural roads as well, and the vanels in through the hedges. They only clean so far, but don't clean in through the hedge itself. They clean till the hedge, and then they can't get any farther. It builds up and comes back out on the road. There's another issue in Notfield Road, past the allotments there, heading for Lisnaskea. The water is running actually down out of the field, across the road, and if it comes heavy rain, there could be maybe 6-7 inches of flood water right across the road. It's an action waiting to happen. They're talking about health and safety on the roads, and all they have to do is clean a wee drain from the road over to the main drain and let the water away. I have told them that maybe 18 months ago, and they would look at it. They never done a thing about it. So I would like that put on, sent to the manager as well. On some of the potholes was marked maybe 2-3 times, and they never be filled, because I've checked some of them, and they went back out and they've been while yellow lines has been off, the mark has been wore away, the mark it again, it's gone again, and the mark it again, and I don't know. It's real. They're doing some kind of a trial in England at the minute to see what potholes they see at the minute. Some kind of stuff they're using in England now on the potholes. Maybe we could get some more details on what it is, and maybe help road service do something more about the potholes. I never had as many complaints about potholes and as much water on roads as what I had this winter.
Thank you.
Also the gritting.
Yep.
The gritting was a wee bit light the year too. This private contractor, I think he was trying to stint the grit to make sure he could ride as many roads as possible without filling again. I know whenever the council done it, you usually got a couple of barrelfuls healed on the side of the road. Now you're only getting a lot of shovelfuls put out, and once once snow comes once, it's not there for the next time because the contractor will not come back and do it again. So maybe them issues can be raised as well.
Your points will be noted. Okay.
Thank you.
I have 1, 2, 4, 6 more speakers in this. I know everybody will be as brief as they can be and to the point. Councillor Burton, Rosemary.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just to follow on with regard to some of the questions that have been asked from the Minister, I last month asked a question in relation to the percentage of finance that the Minister was being allocated to the Fermanagh Omagh District Council area in comparison to other areas, because we have that perception that we're not getting our fair share. And especially, can I also say that in Fermanagh and Omagh area we have less A-class and B-class roads than many of the other districts. A-class and B-class roads are supervised for holes and potholes, etc., much more often than our C-class roads. So I think that's one of the reasons our C-class roads, we're not having the inspections on C-class roads that we deserve. And we have a large number of C-class roads, a greater percentage of C-class roads than many of the other districts, and I think that there's a problem. Next thing I've got to query some of the materials that are now being used in relation to our resurfacing, etc. It doesn't last, as has already been said. There seems to be very little durability in it. Within a year, it's worn or starts peeling off, etc. And last thing I want to say is, on that report, a pothole website or whatever, they seem to have changed the map in it, and it's actually changed the map this past week or so, and it's actually, they used the map, the previous map had houses in it, and you knew there was a pothole at house number 125 or whatever, and you're fit to put your X there. Now they seem to have taken off the houses, and it's that a little bit more difficult to report the exact location of a pothole. And I'm wondering, could they revert back to the previous map that they had used? It would be very useful.
Make it more user-friendly, thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Councillor Gannon?
Thank you, Chair. And roads and the very dire state of them is a recurring theme in our council meetings.
Just ask councillors just to listen to Councillor Gannon, because I can hear plenty of voices.
And without a doubt, the roads are in the worst condition they've ever been. It's abysmal. And it's not just that, it's dangerous for people driving on it, playing dodgems, having to weave in and out to miss huge potholes. And years ago, I remember the SDLP highlighted the decades-long underfunding in our roads and its impact and its long-term impact in our roads. And other parties, particularly Sinn Féin, including in this chamber, didn't acknowledge this. They simply told ministers that the historic underfunding didn't matter and that they should do better. And the past couple of years have just seen the worst deterioration of our roads. They have never been as bad as they are today. And Sinn Féin control infrastructure and finance, the two departments that need to come together to work on this. And I've always said those two departments need to come together to resolve this issue. Sinn Féin have the levers to improve the situation, but they aren't. No one believes the roads will be magically fixed overnight or will be perfect overnight. That's not what anyone's asking for. But we're not even standing still in terms of the quality of our roads. And it's a huge deterioration. It's not even a slow deterioration. It's a huge deterioration we're experiencing. And the executive and the ministers responsible, including infrastructure and finance, should be doing better than seeing a huge deterioration. Again, we're not asking for the roads to be perfect immediately, but they shouldn't be getting this bad, this quick. And it's not good enough. And I think that the party in control of the situation should be doing better, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much, Adam. Councillor McArdle.
Good on my yogurt, Keirlock. Just wanted to echo every councillor's voice there, and Councillor O'Reilly said that that infrastructure is poor at the minute, but a wee bit disappointed with Councillor Gannon's comments there, but I'll just leave it at that there, because I know Councillor Green's coming in here. But I've been a big campaigner for the A509 at the Charra Valley to back into Darlin Road, and I know there's a bad accident and fatalities at it, and they did get their act together to put white lines and stuff like that there. But as a unit, I think as councillors and a local authority, we still need to keep the pressure on to keep things going, and hopefully we'll get there and keep the things going. But that's all I want to say.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Councillor McNulty.
Graham Elgoff, Caherley. I agree with Rosemary there about the A-class and B-class roads. I don't think that it's fair that the makeup of our district are all rural roads and mostly in B-class roads. So I think that we should be listened to a wee bit more. Can I also just add in gullies, block gullies for the main Lack Road, the Grennan Road? The Grennan Road, there's an awful lot of surface water on that road, and it's especially in the last couple of weeks, it's been extremely dangerous. So they need to access the block gullies on that road. That's
Okay, thank you. Councillor McNulty, Councillor McClahry.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go slightly sideways and back to what Councillor Feely was touching upon. I had a young girl there at the weekend, a nurse, just had finally got a post, and something we'd been dealing with also, and was coming back from her shift and wrecked her car in a pothole. So it needed a new wheel, it needed a new tyre. And this is a young girl just starting out in employment. She's now sitting out the money, and it's going to take months upon months if she does get any compensation. And I've been told it takes 4 to 6 months for compensation for a young person starting out a couple of £100. There's people who are struggling if they're out a tenner in a month. So be out a couple of £100 or even more. And also apparently she has to keep the tyre and the wheel so that somebody might come out and look at it, which seems a bit scandalous how a young girl that's a nurse, where she would store that if she has to take it home to her parents' house to get it stored. It seems a bit silly. But also I'm wondering if there's any way maybe we could include that if they're not going to fix the holes, could they speed up the compensation package, get it out quicker, get the money back to people? If they're not going to fix the holes, at least pay for the cars.
Thank you. And it's probably even more onerous. It's probably that if they weren't contacted, if DFA Roads were not contacted in advance of the incident with the pothole, that how could they possibly be in a position to remedy it? This is what they say. So they want advance notice. If they haven't picked it up in their cyclical inspection, they want advance notice. I think compensation is dependent on advance notification, but I'd be pleasantly surprised if it was easier than that. Hope it is, for the sake of that young lady. Okay, Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if Councillor Willer's proposal has been seconded yet in relation to the correspondence to the shared island unit, but I'm happy to second that if that hasn't.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, final comment, Councillor Green.
Thank you. And I suppose I did try to keep this non-political by blaming all the parties over the years, and particularly the British government, I think, was the one. But given that the SDLP came in and made it a political point, I suppose I seen a report where the rail rot started under an SDLP infrastructure minister, Nicola Mallon. The SDLP hasn't got a minister now because they didn't get enough MLAs elected to actually get a minister, so they weren't even able to be in the argument. And the previous Minister of Infrastructure on the SDLP did that well. She actually lost her seat at the next election. So I definitely won't take any lessons from the SDLP how to run a minister.
Thanks very much, Seamus. And a final reply to Adam Gannon.
A very brief one, Chair. I do note Councillor Green's comments that he didn't want to blame any particular one party. When it wasn't a Sinn Féin minister, he was very keen on blaming another party.
Okay, thanks very much for your help there. Okay, so now that was a big round on the state of our roads. You know, we are a rural council, we have these problems, but everybody has been heard that wanted to be heard on that issue. There's a lot of latitude given there, so we're going to return. The various actions have been captured, they've been proposed and seconded and will be actioned. And bear in mind that that meeting on the Tuesday, the 10th of March at 4 o'clock will be with Stephen Hughes and in his new role. Maybe temporary, but new role nonetheless. So back to the minutes then, page 8 and page 9, and page 10, and page 11, and page 12, and page 13. Okay, over to you, Alison.
No, Chair, it's just to note on page 13, the informal meeting with Ofcom will take place on the 24th of February at 4 o'clock via MS Teams, and that's been circulated to members.
Okay, thanks very much. And that's page 13's Councillor Feely.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, for that. Yeah, and I look forward to this meeting with Ofcom. This is another major issue in rural areas too, this post not being delivered. And I know a lot of my fellow councillors have been talking about this at the last couple of meetings. But during last week, we only got post one day in the whole week. And another couple of people came to me complaining about hospital appointments. and missing them over the head of this. So I look forward to this meeting, and we need a good discussion about this. It's not good enough. People missing hospital appointments over this and other issues too, of course. So I'm happy to propose the noting of it.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Councillor. And Councillor Mahan has just forwarded his apologies there through Shirley, and in terms of being discommoded, can't really get to the meeting. No, okay. So move on now to Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I raised this a few weeks ago and pointed out that I had been told that overtime had been cut a way back. I have recently been talking to another person that works in Royal Mail who has informed me that overtime now has been completely cut off. There is no overtime. This is going to lead to absolute nightmares on particularly second-class mail, which I believe is the mail that hospital appointments and everything comes out on. It has been delayed for weeks and weeks. In fact, I heard tell of somebody getting the mail 8 weeks later. So just on this meeting with Ofcom, can we as a council delve into actually what powers Ofcom has to sanction Royal Mail, because Royal Mail seems to not be worried about fines or anything. And the reason why I say that is the last time we had a regulator in, they were maintaining that they had absolutely no remit over NI Water and where they could direct their money, because from Annanoma Council area had got so little of the budget. But then when the legislation was actually delved into, that was far from the truth, and the regulator actually could take control and make them. So maybe if we had a wee bit of research done as a council on what actually can and can't do, you know, it might be, and send it out to councillors, it might give us a wee bit more power or to be able to ask the relevant questions, you know. So that's I'm suggesting that.
Okay, that'll be a proposal, and that'll be seconded by Councillor Feely. Thank you. Okay, that's that. Actioned. So that was page 13, wasn't it? Page 14?
Page 14, Chair.
Okay, Alison, over to you.
Yes, Chair, a couple of items here. Firstly, item 19.5, just we now have 2 further responses in relation to the funding for Women's Aid locally. So we have response from the Department of Justice, which was included with your papers dated the 14th of January. And then in your other folder, we have a response from the Department for Communities.
Okay. Councillor Coyle.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to note both pieces of correspondence. I think it's very disappointing that the Department of Justice don't give any core funding to Women's Aid. And I know that Fermanagh Women's Aid and Omagh Women's Aid will soon become Fermanagh and Omagh Women's Aid. And I think the work that they do and the support that they give women, children, and when it's been needed, others as well, it's just needed so badly, especially with the history of murders and domestic violence and abuse across this council area. So I think I'll just kind of leave it at that for a minute, because I know that they're joining together, and it'd be interesting to see what they're claiming for. But I do think the letter from the Minister is actually very disappointing.
And I'll take a seconder to note that correspondence. Just look around the room. Nolens first. Councillor Hayes, thank you. Keep moving there, Alison.
Yes, Chair. So just at the bottom of that page then, we had the correspondence last month from the Chinese consul. So I just have an update in relation to a few of the items that I was asked to provide further information on. So I was asked to engage directly with the Council Chair, and specifically regarding the proposed itinerary, the potential economic benefits for the district, and clarification regarding the financial contribution in respect of officer attendance. So in relation, firstly, to the proposed itinerary, Chair, my understanding is the similar invitation has issued to 5 councils, and it is under consideration. The council's preference is that the visit would take place towards the end of towards the end of April, ideally the last week of April. With regard to the itinerary, it's proposed to be approximately 6 nights, 3 nights of which would be in Beijing, and in our case, 3 nights in Huangshu. The second part of the visit would vary then for the other councils. The itinerary itself is currently being developed, and more details on that will be forwarded when available, but it is indicated that they would seek to organise exchanges and visits with counterparts in trade, education, culture and tourism. In relation to the expenses then, the proposal from the council is that they would cover the expenses for 6 people, whether councillors or officers, but would hope that a certain number of councillors would be included in the delegation. In relation then, Chair, to the role of the Northern Ireland Bureau, the Northern Ireland Bureau is fully aware of the visit, have been supporting and facilitating the logistics, but it is an initiative of the Chinese Consul General, Mr. Lee. And then the final element, Chair, in relation to the economic benefits, when the council went as part of our own friendship arrangements with Huangshu, certainly Invest NI had identified a number of local companies who are doing business within Huangshu. Members will be aware, and indeed other parts of China, members will be aware of the Taoiseach's recent visit and also that of the Prime Minister. The element then around sponsorship, which was something I was also asked to look at, the invitation, and you will have seen from the previous correspondence from Mr. Lee, is extended, as I understand it, as an initiative on behalf of the Consul General himself and as part of the furthering of general friendly relations with China. The previous 2 engagements which the council has had, firstly under former Councillor Thornton's leadership in 2018, was under the auspices of the Northern Ireland Bureau, and then more recently the visit last October, Chair, which you led, was under our own Friendship City agreement. So this is a further development of that. While the invitation has obviously been offered in that spirit, it would be very unusual, Chair, for the council to receive an offer, or certainly to accept an offer of this extent of financial support. So it would certainly be my recommendation that if we choose to accept the visit, it would be something that the council would fund itself. And happy to deal with any queries. I should say, Chair, obviously there is not a requirement particularly to decide on this matter this evening, as the intention would be a visit towards the end of April, and other councils, as I say, are considering the matter.
Okay, thank you. And there's the invite there, should you ever want to refer to it, or any of us in the course of the meeting. Okay, Councillor Ovens, Mark.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I thank the Chief Executive for that update. I mean, I did listen, Chair, quite closely to what the Chief Executive said there, and it was a useful update. But frankly speaking, Chair, having heard that update and having looked again through the previous invitation, I see no foundation or no basis whatsoever for this council to take up that invitation. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again, instead of taking free trips, this council should be focusing on the issues that matter most to ratepayers. Empty the bins, keep the parks clean, try to deliver better and improved leisure facilities. These are the sorts of things that people elect us to this chamber to do. They don't elect us to go off on trips to China, whether they're paid by the Chinese Communist Party, the Chinese government, or whether we pay for it ourselves. Chair, we are literally within days of this council at some point taking a decision to likely increase rates. I'm not sure what the rate is, but it's in all likelihood going to increase. I think if this council is seen to be taking up an offer of a trip coming literally within weeks and months of this council having already sent a delegation to China late last year at the expense of £5,500 to local ratepayers, and that was £5,500 of local business or money that was taken out of the pockets of businesses and local homes, still to negligible benefit. I'll just be completely honest, Chair. I think you know my opinion on that visit. I mean, frankly speaking, I just think we need to get a grip of our priorities within this chamber. We've spoken about lots of important things already tonight, but we are elected here to try to deliver better services for local ratepayers. I really struggle to see what benefit sending a large delegation of up to 6 people from this council would deliver for local people. I mean, we are not the Prime Minister's office. We are not the Taoiseach's office. I understand why there are large international trade delegations. We are not a large international organisation. We simply would not carry the same the same authority as that. So, Chair, I've listened to the update. As I say, I'm going to make a proposal that we note the correspondence and that we respond, thanking them for the offer, but respectively saying thank you, but we have other priorities at the moment, so we will be declining the invitation on this trip, because frankly, Chair, people expect much, much better from this council than going off on large delegations like this. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Without going all over everything again, first of all, I'll second Councillor Robbins' proposal. Personally, I think this visit is too close to our last visit, and we have seen no benefits of that visit as of yet, and no more communication from it. And let's be honest with you, the general public out there, even though the trip has been paid for, the general public out there, they don't look into the smaller bits and pieces of these trips. And as Councillor Robbins has said, they look at their fundamental issues that involves them, the legs of their bins, etc. So, as I say, I will second Councillor Robbins' proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Green.
Thank you. It's hard to know what position the UUP is going to take up on any given night. They're like a spinning top. It's only a few years from Councillor Thornton was leading a delegation to China. The UUP chairperson of the council. I didn't hear one UUP councillor talking against it or saying anything against it. Now they're all in unison criticising this. I suppose if we are going down that road that we don't go on any of these trips, or we don't spend ratepayers' money, we have to look at all council funded trips and events that particularly the unionist parties go on an annual basis. Everything needs to be looked at if we're really going to knuckle down and just concentrate on the things that are important to our electorate, like as Councillor Owen said, bins and play parks and things like that. I never heard the same bit of hypocrisy in my life, but it's nothing new coming from those two unions.
I'll go now to Councillor Coyle.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for that feedback, Alison. I would not be supporting Councillor Ovens' proposal, but I would like to propose that we do leave it for this month and look at what an itinerary is going to look like, because from some of the feedback that we have had, that there is benefits locally, and there, I don't think anybody's bin was missed in October because the chair was visiting somebody in China. So if I'd like to propose that, please.
Okay, thank you. I'll go now to Councillor O'Reilly, Cordier O'Reilly.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second Debbie's proposal there. And can I say, Chair, that I have every confidence in the service delivery of this council to be able to take care of the issues that affect everybody's daily lives, as some of the examples Councillor Ovens has outlined. But I also have a very long memory, Chair, of waiting to see when those bigger powers that do go out on these delegations to look for inward investment has brought it to Fermanagh and to Omagh. And Chair, we are painfully at a loss to find those big influxes. So I think it's very incumbent and a part of what we are elected as local representatives and as a local authority to do is to improve the lives of our citizens. And that is delivering services at a local level, but it is also about going out there and trying to get inward investment. It is about trying to facilitate our companies that we have, whether they are bigger companies or growing companies, to be able to go out and find other markets throughout the world to increase the opportunity for local people to stay in our council area, get well-paid jobs, and to be able to live and stay as productive citizens in this area, Chair. So to be looking at it one-dimensional, as Councillor Ovens has outlined here, I think does a disservice to the council, and I think that we have an opportunity to not alone from a China trip or any other trip to evaluate very carefully whether there is a real opportunity to deliver tangible benefits and then pursue that. Chair, I do, and the last thing I will say is that I do note that we had a link with Bielefeld for many, many years, and I'm just wondering the amount of tangible benefits we got out of that, and then we decided that that wasn't working and we were going to look elsewhere. So I think it's right and proper that we do have these links. If they work, then we maximise out of those, and if they don't, then we look elsewhere. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Irvine.
Thank you very much, Chair. I was going to come in second Councillor Ovens' proposal, but that's already been done by my party colleague. I think part of what we're trying to say is we've already had one trip with regard to visiting China on a cultural twinning basis. This seems to be a slightly different thrust going forward. Our primary duty, although we would like it to be, is not actually the gathering and creation of inward investments. That's Invest NI. And unfortunately, as Councillor O'Reilly has said, they have proved very ineffective at the moment for bringing investment at times into our council area. And it's our own SMEs that have actually gone outwards that have created the opportunities going forward. I think on that regard, we should be concentrating and pushing Invest NI to act better on our behalf for bringing that in, because that is their primary objective. That's their raison d'etre. It's not our raison d'etre. Our raison d'etre is slightly different. So we should be actually lobbying them. And that's why I don't think it's a good idea to go out on another visit to China, because it's not our primary function to actually garner or encourage and bring forward investment. It's been highlighted that our links with Bielefeld for many years didn't necessarily produce any productivity going forward. And probably part of the reason for that was that they were a cultural link going forward. It wasn't actually a business link. And I think if we are trying to act on behalf of the business community, we should be talking to our own business community about what they're looking for, what they need, and helping them to do that, rather than going out on a visit ourselves to another country that is vast, that is very forward-thinking, but it's not necessarily on the same wavelength as we are. So I think we need to sort of be more introspective before we outreach. Thank you very much, Chair.
Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you very much, Chair. When I look at this, I think that there are essentially three questions that we need to ask when it comes to our international engagement, if we are to have international engagement. The first of which being, what is the objective? The second of which being, is what we're doing value for money? And the third of which being, is the conduct that we're engaged in ethical to the best extent? And looking at this, I think in the first instance, the initial offer of this essentially being entirely subsidized by the Chinese state, that is problematic. And I think that if this were to go ahead, it could only be in the context, as Alison has outlined, of it being something that we ourselves are prepared to fund. But I think that it would be irresponsible, and I don't think there is a strong argument for us returning to China with such a delegation so soon after we have already sent such a delegation. And I can't actually think of a similar situation in the course of the last two mandates that I've been here where we've actually done such a thing. And I think it would be very difficult to justify to people out there how we feel it's going to achieve any objective that we have, how it's going to be value for money, and how we could possibly justify that. So on that basis, I would be more inclined to be supporting Councillor Ovens' proposal on this occasion. And I think that we do need to have a broader reflection in due course on how it is that we actually manage our international engagement so that it's more strategic, so that it's more ethical, and so that it actually does achieve tangible benefits for our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Gannon.
Thank you, Chair, and I was listening with great interest to all the contributions and to the Chief Executive's update. I think the fact that this kind of offer nearly came out of the blue to a degree. We weren't asking for another trip. We had only recently been in the full funding part of it, fully funded, did raise concerns with many and people in the community who heard this. And you have to ask, what are the terms of the visit? Why has this come about? And of course, there is the wider geopolitical world out there where China is pivoting towards Europe following US tariffs, which is probably partially the reason for this, and building relationships in that way. But I think something that hasn't been mentioned, that does need to be mentioned, really is China does have a questionable human rights record, and we just need to be cautious of how we engage going forward. You know, I think you went out, Chair, and you had a productive visit, and I think we do need to explore what this relationship's about in more detail. We need more development of the ideas behind it. What is it about? Because to go again so soon, when we've really had no further development of what this is. I do remember in the previous mandate, I went with a delegation out to Portugal, which seemed brilliant, but then nothing came of it. And you have to ask, was it worthwhile? And in hindsight, you would say no. And obviously the reference to Bielefeld there as well. And that's the question. What is the real benefit? What is the aim? What is the objective of it? And I don't think we've quite developed those ideas at this stage. And that's not to say we shouldn't engage with China and we shouldn't be considering our future relationship and potentially further links in future, but just so soon to the last visit. And the fact that we haven't had that further development on this occasion, I don't think it would be correct to take up this offer at this time. I think we need to develop the objectives and the idea about what we're doing and what the relationship will be, including with the local community such as businesses, which has been mentioned, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Warrington.
I just want to get clarity on a comment that was said where unionists travelling expenses on trips abroad. Can I broaden that route to ask what particular trips that the councillor was talking about? And also, like, nobody mentioned that this trip to China was in any way political. We have all our own opinions, and that's why we're here tonight. So I'd just like to ask the councillor what he meant by his comments on unionist trips. Doesn't be questioned. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and that'll be up to the individual councillor, his or her prerogative to respond. Councillor Green has indicated.
Thank you. I'll throw it back to the unionists and ask them what trips they go on. They're bound to know themselves. I don't know why they're asking me, but we follow.
Okay, so
the council funds them, and like the bins don't be lifted while they're away sometimes, and you know, so it's one of them things.
Okay, so I've one proposal, two proposals. Have both of them seconded? Yes. Okay, so go to Councillor Ovans's proposal. Do you wish to read out what you understand to be the proposal from Councillor Ovens?
Certainly, Chair. Okay, so that the proposal is that we thank the Chinese Consul for the invitation, but respectfully decline and note the invitation.
Okay. Okay.
Seconded by Councillor Warrington.
Okay, so that's the proposal that's going to be put to the meeting. So we set up a vote, don't we now? Are we all in agreement that that is the proposal?
No. With the proposal, are members in agreement with the proposal?
All right, well, I'm reading that there would be division. I've chosen to read that there would be division in the matter. So, okay. So I think we're going to go to the vote here, reading the mood of the room. Okay. So we'll set up a vote Councillors will vote online and they will vote in the chamber. And that'll be opened up soon, won't it?
Chair, just a point of order. It's looking me to log in for a vote to Slido. It's just an IT error.
Okay, thanks, Padraigin, for that. And David will assist in the matter. Thank you, Padraigin. Councillor Kelly. So, the vote is on. No.
So you're 15 for 19 against. 19. I think you go for first. Exactly. 4 is down there.
Okay, so the vote has closed and we do have an outcome in respect to this particular vote. So the figures are as follows. 15 for, 19 against. So the proposal falls. Okay. I now go to Councillor Coyle's proposal to defer this for 1 month. Okay, awaiting further details on itinerary, substance, etc. Okay, thank you. So again, the vote is being set up and members will have the opportunity to vote as of now. Councillor Coyle's proposal, seconded by
Councillor O'Reilly.
Councillor Riley.
You did 2 extensions. 12, 2 extensions, that's coming together.
Okay, members, again, that vote has now closed and the outcome is known. So the outcome is as follows. Okay. 19 for, 12 against and 2 abstentions. So that proposal that is carried. Okay, thank you. Members, we're going to move on. Page 15, page 16, page 17, page 18, page 19 and page 20. So those have been signed and we move on. We move on in the agenda. So that was, get this straightened up. So now we move to item 5 on the agenda. And that is to confirm the minutes of the Environmental Services Committee meeting held on the 14th of January. If you get that handy there, Alison. Thank you. Okay, that's great. So, again, this is for accuracy only, this bit. Okay, page 1, page 2, Lachanaga 3, page 4, page 5, and page 6. So I'll go now to Councillor Hayes, hopefully. Thank you for to propose that. And is there a seconder in the room? Councillor McGrath caught my eye first. Thank you. And that's agreed, members, in terms of accuracy. So then, matters arising would be item 6 in your agenda. Again, Environmental Services, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, and page 6. Maybe if I just want to record my appreciation for the temporary closure of Church Street North, off Street Car Park in Omagh, to facilitate mourners and visiting clergy attending the funeral of Father Hassan. Just want to record that appreciation. Thank you. And page then moving on would be item 7. So again, paper C in your pack. Earl might help me in due course here. So page 1 for accuracy, page 2 and 3, 4 and 5, 6 and 7 and 8. Go now to Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Chair. I propose the adoption of the Regeneration Community Committee meeting minutes held on the Thursday, the 15th of January 2026.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Earl. And just take a seconder for that in the room. Okay, Councillor McColgan, thanks very much. Okay, and again, matters arising in the RNC, Regeneration and Community, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, 6, and 7, and 8. Thanks very much. And we'll go now to paper D.
Policy and resources.
Yeah, Policy and Resources. And Councillor Riley chairs this committee. So again, for accuracy, 8 pages in total. Page 1, Lahanach Ado. Page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, and page 8. So I'll bring in Councillor Riley.
I propose the minutes of the Policy and Resources Committee held on the 19th of January 2026.
Okay. Councillor Hawkes and Councillor Deehan both indicating here. I'll go to Councillor Deehan with your indulgence. Shirley, Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second the acceptance of these minutes, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. And thanks to Shirley there as well. Thank you. So moving on then till matters arising. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6. Okay, I've got somebody there.
Sorry, Chair, just we had agreed at the Policy and Resources Committee meeting that we would receive nominations this evening for the elected members' civil contingencies training, and that's scheduled for the 18th of February in Desert Crate, please, from Nilga organised.
Okay. So would your office take nominations in the course of the week?
Well, could we maybe just say by Friday, Chair? It's just Nilga need to know for their own arrangements for the site and for site access.
So group leaders take note. Wouldn't that be the right thing to do?
That's fine.
And I'll be in touch with you on or before Friday with your office for Democratic Services. Thank you.
Yeah, and if members are happy that we would accept those then as approved duties, Chair.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll take a proposal and a seconder for that to be included as an approved duty. So do I have a proposal? Okay. Councillor Stephen Donnelly, thank you, and Councillor Gannon proposed and seconded and agreed, members.
Perfect. And Chair, just on a related point, if I may, also from Nilga, we've received correspondence from Nilga advising the elected member development programme that Councillor Gannon has expressed an interest in that. I know he's just working on logistics if it's feasible, but we had previously reported this to the council and the cost was dependent on the final number of participants, which is likely to be 9. So the costs for that, Chair, would be £1,622 plus VAT plus travel costs.
Okay. And what am I expected to do here? A proposer and seconder to adopt that. Councillor McGrath proposes. Have a seconder for that. Okay. Okay, Councillor Riley. Thank you.
Interest there.
Right.
Just to put on record that declare an interest in that, Chair, for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Not sure whether to put you out of the room or keep you in the room. Thank you, Adam. That's fine. Okay, so that's that. Page 7, page 8, isn't that right? Okay, and page 8. So that's that one dispensed with as well. Aye, so we're now going to move through correspondence. And Alison, you can take the lead here, please. Now, there's a significant number of letters, items of correspondence here, more than 11, more than around 15 or so. So Alison's going to take us through each of these, and I'll be looking for contributions from the floor or online. Alison?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. So in relation to the first item from Queen's University, this is in relation to the local innovation partnerships. We've received correspondence from Queen's indicating really seeking the council's support to participate in an expression of interest process for one of the funding strands. There would be no financial commitment required from the council chair, and it would align with our broader economic work as well as the local economic partnership. So we'd be recommending that we would proceed to submit that expression of interest with Queen's.
Okay, and again, help me out here. Councillor McLaughlin.
I was just wondering, could you clarify what actual benefit there would be for our council area within this fund? As it appears to mention, when I was looking through it, the Belfast-Londonderry corridor, which would be the east, and we're obviously clearly in the west. We're the other side of that famous shuck. And once you pass the Ballygully roundabout, we're beyond that again. So I'm just wondering what benefit there would be in us supporting this, or is there going to be another strand that we might actually fall under?
So my understanding, Chair, is that there will be eligibility across Northern Ireland in terms of participation, particularly the strand of interest that Queen's have indicated is around more agri-food and the agri-economy. Clearly, what they would have to be able to demonstrate in the expression of interest would be a district benefit as opposed to a generic benefit, and that would be something we would be teasing out. But subject to that being approved, being demonstrated, that would be the basis on which we would submit. My understanding, I think, for some of the wider UK government funds is that while there are certain priority areas identified, it doesn't necessarily exclude other areas. So our assumption is for Manna and Omagh in its entirety would be eligible, and that anything that would be included as part of the bid would have to be reflective of the district as a whole.
On those conditions, then I'm happy to propose that we do send a letter of recommendation, but I would like it included that we notice that we're not included at the moment.
Specific benefit. Yeah.
Okay, specific benefit will be mentioned, and you're proposing the adoption of that correspondence. Is there a seconder for that? Thanks, Councillor Little. That's great. Moving on now to 11.2.
Okay, so Chair, this is from the Army Benevolent Fund, and this is in relation to the Belfast Blitz concert. So Chair, in the context, as members will be aware of our charities policy, it wouldn't be something that the council could corporately support. However, we have previously provided this information in case individual members or indeed individual parties would wish to be supportive. So recommending it would be noted.
Councillor McCann.
Happy to propose that, Chair.
Propose the noting of. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor McLaughlin, thanks very much. And Shirley was going to do it too. I mean, 100 metres, we're going to have to move quicker.
So, okay. Thanks, Chair. The next item then is nominations. This was considered briefly at the Planning Committee meeting in January. So this is a planning, learning and engagement network that NILGA are establishing, and each of the 11 councils has been asked to nominate 2 members to participate on a task and finish working group, the details of which are really the second page of the letter, Chair. I suppose the important thing is really they are members of the Planning Committee, obviously have an understanding, but also have the ability to commit time to the working group. So the deadline is the end of the month. Ideally, NILGA would be keen to receive nominations this evening, if that is possible.
Okay. So we'll look around the room for a bit of leadership here. Does anybody wish to present when the call for leadership goes out? Who's going to respond to this? Okay, is it just noting for now then?
Well, okay, Chair, if members wish, we could then refer it back to the Planning Committee in February, but essentially with council powers so that the decision in February would take effect.
Okay, Councillor Warrington.
I'd like to nominate Councillor McLaughlin, please.
Okay. And Councillor Coyle.
I was going to propose that it goes back to the planning, but because we don't have a nomination tonight, so maybe if we can do that.
Aye, we can consider Councillor McLaughlin as a nominated person, and then you can tidy up.
Oh, Thomas, then I'll propose Thomas O'Reilly.
Okay.
Thank you.
That dealt with, I think, members. Aye. don't need a proposer or second? No. Okay. And then 11.4, Alison?
Yes, Chair, this is a response from Forest Service. We had written to them in October, and this was in relation to clarification about the replanting of trees around existing power lines, particularly following on from Storm Éowyn. So this is the response, which really is confirming they will continue to operate with that practice.
Okay. And again, go to Councillor Green.
Yeah, well, I'm glad the Chief Executive said that it looks as if they're going to continue on their policy of planting them close to the power lines. I never seen it that they're wrote in such a way to try and confuse you, but when you look at it realistically, that's exactly what they're saying, is that they're going to go happily on and plant them again close to the power lines, and then it's up to the utility provider then to do whatever they need to do after that. It's an absolutely scandalous lot of that, and I would suggest that we write to their overseer, the Minister of Agriculture, and ask, is he in support of this policy of replanting close to overhead wires, electric wires that's caused havoc in any given storm that comes. So surely that's up to a government department to instruct the Forest Service to stop that. If they need to rewrite the wayleave rights away and that, they need to do it. But that is just not good enough. And so I propose we write to the Minister, and we write linking John Joe Boyle into it and expressing just how shocking that response is. So that's my proposal.
Councillor Feely.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, thanks very much. I move now to Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm going to sort of, not surprisingly, maybe disagree with the previous speaker. I would hope that the Forest Service will have the wit to keep any replantation back from power lines, but I certainly welcome the fact that they're going to do significant replanting throughout the area. As somebody who was born and brought up in the forestry, my father was a forester, I have a great love for the forestry, so I would hope that continues. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor Barton, Rosemary.
Thank you very much. And indeed, I welcome the replanting of the forests again. But I am very, very concerned about the planting underneath the electric lines again, because if you had seen the devastation that had been that happened over the Erne North area, where swathes of forest pulled down electric lines, etc., and left people without electricity for weeks on end. So I think it's something that we need to look at very carefully.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Riff, Edit.
Thanks, Chair. I think it's a good example of two departments trying to protect their own budgets to the detriment of society. Could I ask that we add into that a letter to the Department for Infrastructure asking that on behalf of NIE to recommend or instruct negotiations to ensure that this is done, because I think this is mostly about cost, and I think NIE would have to pay more for the land or further surrounding the lines. So that to me is an issue of two departments in Stormont protecting their own budgets, and the end result is we pay millions and millions of pounds when there's storm damage. So a bit more common sense from both sides would be useful here. So if we can get a letter to the Department of Infrastructure and try and get that dialogue opened, because that's not going to be an issue just for Fermanagh, it's going to be an issue everywhere, and every time there's a storm, it's going to cost our pocket.
Okay, Councillor Green.
I would be happy enough to include the Department of Infrastructure, but I would also point out that the Forest Service under the Department of Agriculture is one of the few government departments that actually makes a huge amount of money themselves by selling timber. They're well capable to be able to soak up the expense of keeping trees back a bit from power lines. So I just want to add that bit. The Forest Service are an asset-rich and money-rich organisation. All you have to do is watch them if they want to make a lane. They tip a load of stones and knock a foot off the top of it. They make lanes maybe 8 foot deep. That's the type of money that they're able to throw at things. So keeping the trees back a bit from power lines, I don't think would break the Forest Service.
Okay. But I think you've included in your proposal the suggestion of Councillor Roof, and I think he'll be content that that's in there. Thanks very much, both. So that would be agreed, members. They're proposed and seconded. Matter. Okay. Move on to 11.5.
Okay. Chair, this was the councillor previously requested a copy of the Myola catchment flood study. So we've the response from DFI, which indicates they're still looking at the preferred option. Just updates available on the website at the moment. And once it's formally completed, we will receive that in due course.
Councillor Gannon.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, this was in relation to seeing if there's any learnings for the Sillies River in Bow, and obviously flooding there again recently, which was a disturbance to residents and a great nuisance to them going about their everyday life. But I do want to say, obviously, this is a long-term thing. We won't see the outcome of it. So perhaps this is something that we could look at bringing to a relevant committee. And I know it's going to sound a bit ridiculous in terms of time scales, but at some stage in a year plus, bring it to the relevant committee. If there's any update on it, or even I don't know if other councillors, I know Arran West councillors may be interested in it. It might be better just to go to Arran West councillors. I'll take opinion of the chief executive and what might be the best approach to kind of keep on top of it, and the opinions of other councillors if it's something that they want in committee or just to be sent out.
That's okay, Chair. I mean, I think we'll keep an eye on it. Obviously, we can liaise with DFI officials, and the relevant committee would be Environmental Services, and I think we would just include it through by way of update, and all members would have access to those papers. And if, for example, if it was decided to bring DFI in to speak on the final report, we could agree accordingly.
Okay. That's agreed, members. Okay, just take a seconder, a formal seconder. Councillor Feely, thanks very much, and agreed. Okay, so we're moving now to correspondence item 11.6. This relates to electoral ID.
Cards, yeah. Okay, Chair, thank you. And I suppose the council has made a number of representations, and this is the response now from the Northern Ireland office, advising that it's not considering a process to automatically provide 16 and 17-year-olds with electoral ID cards at this time.
Okay. Just take a proposer. Okay. Councillor Dermot Brown.
Thanks, Chair. Just want to say that I'm very disappointed in this response from the British government. The policy which they have agreed to is that 16 and 17-year-olds will be given the vote at the next Westminster election, and that's something that we all welcome. But at the same time that they're producing that, they're also effectively blocking 16 and 17-year-olds from voting. Yeah. You know, it's highly contradictory what they're doing here. They're saying that 16 and 17-year-olds will have other forms of IDs like driving licenses and passports and things like that. That's ridiculous. You know, who would expect a 16-year-old to have a driving license or indeed a passport or anything like that? So it's bizarre. I remember, I go back to it again, when I was in school as a 16-year-old, the electoral office came into my class and every student in St Michael's got an electoral ID at that time. Why they've stopped that, one can only assume that it's to prevent democracy in action. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Gannon.
Thank you, Chair, and similar to Councillor Brown, very disappointed. And as a similar aged Councillor Brown had the exact same experience of the electoral office coming in. Actually, Chair, I was looking through documents and stuff trying to get something out for the car the other day, and I actually came across me electoral ID card. I should have brought it actually, but I didn't think of that at the time. And there I was in it wearing my school uniform. But it's not even just. Obviously, there'll be a need for ID, and I know I had that card before I had a driver's license or a provisional driver's license at the time. So if I had been able to vote at that time, if there had been an election, I wouldn't have had any ID but for that electoral identity card. So it definitely you know, what boggles the mind here, it was worthwhile 13, 14 years ago, but it's not worthwhile today. Why is that? That's the question. And the other point that I was saying, it mentions in this about the education piece. What better way to get young people engaged and give them a bit of education than having the electoral office come in and they all get this card and everyone gets this card? Because it was one of those things that I remember in school, and having went to St. Michael's as well, all the lads being like, oh geez, I've got this card that I can vote, and it was great. But look, I thought it was brilliant at the time, and I'll just have to disagree with the Secretary of State on that, but I'll second the noting, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Riley.
And Chair, just to add my voice, I think it's regrettable that this is the attitude from Hilary Benn and the British government on spending some money to be able to increase the awareness and the education of young people in getting involved in the electoral system. But I think it just comes down to that, Chair. It comes down to money. And we see now some of the outworkings of closing our local office in Omagh so that we don't have the local people here that can go out to the schools and deliver services such as this and be able to deal with ongoing issues that come up from time to time with people who wish to exercise their vote rights. And I think it's another example of the centralisation of services going badly wrong.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, you're consistent on that issue? Yeah. The whole issue of disenfranchising people, putting barriers in their way, as Councillor Brown outlined, and Councillor Gannon as well. So, in terms of action, nothing. Okay, and that is proposed and seconded to be noted. Thank you. Okay, and then moving on to item 11.7.
Yes, Chair. This is from the Executive Office and it's setting out the Northern Ireland Executive's response to the COVID-19 Inquiry Module 2 report. So set out in the letter, well, firstly, are links to the reports and the responses. And then secondly, really evidence gathering or engagement sessions, which are detailed at the bottom of the first page. And then advising us that the written feedback, the closing date is towards the end of March. Members will be aware that in the previous modules, councils, we worked collectively with NILGA, who responded on behalf of the sector. So my understanding is something similar would be done this time around. So at this stage, Chair, really all we'd be asking would be for the correspondence to be noted, unless members have any strong preference regarding the attendance at the engagement events, which are detailed.
Okay, thank you. I just take a hand signal here if anybody wants to propose to note that. Okay, Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly, thank you very much. And if anybody wants to second, Councillor Gannon, and that's agreed, members. Moving on then, item 11.8.
Yes, Chair, this is an invitation to the Rare Disease Partnership, Northern Ireland Rare Disease Partnership Conference, which is going to be held at the end of the month on the 20th of February in the Abrington Hotel Derry, Londonderry. Free to attend, Chair, but just travel costs would be the only financial implication for the Council.
Okay, and again, would it be okay, Alison, if Democratic Services had to be noted by
Friday,
by notified honour before Friday of this week to be considered eligible for attending that? Okay. Proposer and seconder for that course of action, Councillor Hawkes proposed and Councillor Thompson seconds. Thanks very much to you both. And agreed. Okay, so then we'll look at 11.9 now. This is about link cash access assessment outcome. This always generates interest.
Yes, Chair. So this is specific to the closure of the Santander branch and the assessment that was undertaken. So in summary, the assessment found that there would not be a gap in cash access services available in the local area as a result. There is a mechanism which is detailed around appealing this, or if we don't agree rather with the decision, and that's really what we would need members to consider this evening.
Okay. Councillor Hayes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to say, this is really, really disheartening to hear of another bank closing down. It's bad enough that there are no banks whatsoever left in Erne East, and a lot of people did have to travel to Enniskillen for other banks. Not just for individual customers, but my own town, Maguires Bridge Village and Rural Development Association, and may have to declare an interest, actually use that for their community group. And I know from past experience that we have been trying to do things online with that bank, and we've been told we have to go into branch. So now what's going to happen? You know, are we going to have to go? I think the nearest one now will be Omagh for now. You know, I mean, what's going to happen? Are we going to go travel to Belfast in a few years because there will be no banks in this district whatsoever? So just to note that I'm really, really disappointed, and I'd like to see if we could possibly appeal this and even write to Santander and ask them how are they going to help accommodate any people or groups that use their bank in Enniskillen that need the in-branch services. You know, have you thought about this, or, you know, what are their plans for that? So, yeah, that's it, Chair.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. My basic expectation would be that both Omagh and Enniskillen would have the full range of banking provision. You know, you talked about having to travel now for Santander. That is a big issue. And, you know, the Omagh feels the loss of the AIB bank, you know, at High Street, very much so. But I'll go now to Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to agree with Councillor Hayes there and to second her proposal, it is really, really disappointing that we've seen yet another bank pulling out of the Fermanagh area. You know, lots and lots of people use these services. They rely on them. They're not engaging with digital banking, as is their right. You know, we often talk about how important cash is in the society and how important cash can be for rural towns and villages, but yet banks don't seem to take any notices. We hear the same argument time and time again. This is about lack of footfall, digitalisation, you know, but the banks never come out and say what this is really about. This is about maximising their profits at the expense of local people. So it's absolutely disgraceful, and just my thoughts with the people who are going to be affected and their jobs that could potentially be lost as well, which is very important. Yeah, disappointing. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gannon.
Thank you, Chair. And of course, really disappointing news. Yet another bank in this county shutting up shop, essentially. And first and foremost, I do want to mention the employees who will be affected by this and their jobs. They're going through probably a very uncertain period now in their lives. And primarily they have to be thought about and considered in this, and because Santander certainly didn't consider them. Of course, banking is moving more online, which we know, but from speaking to a number of community groups and sports clubs that use Santander, and quite a few actually do locally, they for a long time have tried to move people to post offices. So they may talk about football, but I know of football clubs that were told, you are not allowed to come into our branch. You have an account of us, but you're not allowed to come in to deposit money. You're not allowed to come in to ask questions. You have to go to a post office or phone them. And the experiences that I have heard is that customer service, when you do phone them, isn't necessarily the best, and people aren't getting a good experience, and it's impacting community groups and sports clubs, which is just not good enough. I don't think Santander have considered that. But here's something that I do want to say, Chair, is that quite often we've had banks close, or other services or other businesses close. I think people locally need to start voting with their feet and bringing their business elsewhere if at all possible. Obviously, it's not always possible, but I think if other banks locally got an influx of customers and they were all said, this is because we want the brick and mortar service, you would like to think that would encourage such a service to stay open. And there is current account switch services which do make this quite easy. Obviously, savings and other types of accounts is more difficult for people, but I really do think, and I do support the appeal that has been proposed by Councillor Hayes there. We probably won't be successful, I would say. We've been there, done that before, but I think people should really should be considering, if at all possible, take their business to a bank that will keep a service locally for people here.
Okay, thank you. That's a good point about community groups. I'm sure John Boyle would be aware of this. You know, you often hear it from community support officers, helping groups. They're very often asked for advice as to which bank will be most accessible to us as a community group. And I know they've found great hurdles, John. Are you aware of that, John?
Yeah, Chair, I know it is an issue for community groups, and they do need at a very local level. They do need their local banks, their bricks and the mortar, in order to go in, because many of the local community groups have difficulty in setting up online facilities and everything associated with that. And I know our community support officers out there are of great help to them in advice and guidance. But I know it is a difficult area for community groups and sports organisations, as Councillor Gannon says.
Thanks, John. Okay. Councillor Riff.
Thanks, Chair. And yeah, it's just very disheartening to see this happening in Enniskillen. Santander was the bank that I would have used, and I had a need to use it even last week in the actual building. As Councillor Gannon has said, I will certainly be voting with my feet, and I think that's something that the people of Enniskillen and the wider area maybe has to have a think about, because we've seen what's happened to the likes of Listenski, and if there's not an impetus to use banks that have locations nearby, that there is the risk of a wider issue. So yeah, very disheartening for the local people that are working there as well, who I've always seen themselves to be very, very good at their jobs. But as Councillor Gannon has said, there's definitely at times some directives from above that has been difficult for others to use. So yeah, disappointing. I'm more than happy to support the motion from Councillor Hayes. As we've seen with Listenski, Link aren't necessarily going to accept our appeal, but there's no harm in trying on this front. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. And unfortunately, this is the start of the rot in our two large towns, Enniskillen and Omagh. A few years ago, our second biggest town, Listenski, had 3 banks. We now have none. All the campaigning in the world, as previous councillors had said, won't make one blind bit of difference. These banks are going to close. They're going to get their customers to go online, and that's just the way it's going to be. I would predict, if any of us is about in 10 years, there's a possibility there won't be one bank left in Enniskillen or Omagh. That's the way they're going. They don't care about rural counties. If they get everyone online, and it's too handy to go online for people that they forget about the community groups, the sports clubs. The banks don't care about them. They're only a minor thing to them. As long as they can save their money and save paying staff and everything, they're happy enough to make their big profits. So my prediction is 10 years' time, there won't be a bank left in Enniskillen either, and maybe Omagh. That's the way it's going. Nobody would have foreseen 10 years ago that Listenski, the 3 banks in Listenski, had been closed.
Okay. We'll take a note of your prediction, come back to you. Okay, but it is a very serious prediction, based on evidence. We're in. Okay, so that has been proposed and seconded, a proposal of Councillor Hayes, and that is agreed, members. Okay. Now, next up is 11.10, and that's to note correspondence from the Department of Finance. Over to you, Alison.
Okay, Chair, thank you. We did, and members will be aware of this now from the media coverage as well, and we did circulate it to you on Friday. So this is just formal confirmation of the Minister of Finance's decision to stop the Reval 2026 exercise. And as you indicated, Chair, this is just an implication on the scheduling of our special council meeting, which was due to be this Thursday. So on Monday, we received the updated information from So on Friday, we received the updated information from the department in relation to the estimated penny product. Yesterday, we just received an update on the rate support grant, the de-rating grant and the transferred functions grant. So we're just finalising the papers, Chair, and as such, we'd be recommending that that meeting would now take place next Thursday, which is the 12th of February, again at 7 p.m, and that will be in the Grange.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think we were all involved in lobbying variously, I'm sure. It's quite frenetic on the Thursday and the Friday, wasn't it? And I want to thank Jill Cush and Catherine Leonard for meeting with me regarding our own rates process, but we chatted at that meeting about that as well. I know I made an intervention, same as everybody would have, but haven't spoken till hospitality providers in both Omagh and Enniskillen. And it wasn't just Omagh and Enniskillen, it's the other villages, the other towns. There's going to have a disproportionate impact, and thankfully that was turned around. So we'll go now to Councillor Warrington.
I'll propose the noting of the correspondence and certainly welcome the decision that has been made. As you've already referred to, Chair, there was a lot of worried proprietors, certainly of the hospitality section out there, and certainly going forward, hopefully such a mistake will not be made again. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gannon.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll second the noting of this. And I too will welcome the Finance Minister's U-turn on this. We should never really been here. Chair, hospitality business, some of them faced a doubling or tripling of their rates bills, with many thinking it was the end of their business potentially. And this was done, obviously, with the approval of John O'Dowd as the Finance Minister. And really, it came across that it was waved through without a second thought, because as soon as it was made public and as soon as people saw it, the impact was clear of what would happen. And initially, concerns were waved off. And some Sinn Féin MLAs even laughed in the Assembly Chamber when the concerns of hospitality was brought up, which just showed disdain for local businesses and workers whose jobs were put at risk in that moment potentially. And I know obviously the hospitality sector rallied to stand up to this, and obviously the SDLP in opposition fought hard to ensure that the policy was paused. And again, we're glad that that has been secured, but clarity on this is still needed, and there's still a question hanging in the air and concerns about where does this go? Will we just be here in 12 months again? We need more information, and not to mention the near chaos John O'Dowd has caused within councils. Look at this last minute change. Like, we were ready to go. We've had rates workshops. We had all discussed it. We had all looked at it, and we were hopefully all abreast of our figures. And now it comes to this, that it's been changed at the last minute. What if he had waited a week for a U-turn and then we had agreed? That could have potentially been disastrous for council budgets across the north. You know, I think we deserve a wee bit better. Hopefully the Finance Minister will take cognizance of the events of the past week and the feedback, and some more permanent solution will be found to this that is fair and balanced and doesn't cause this problem again, Chair.
Thanks very much. Adam, I'll go to Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I too would like to welcome this decision by the Minister for Finance to instruct Land and Property Services to halt the implementation process of REVAL 2026. This comes as a great relief to many of our businesses, particularly hotels, pubs, and other hospitality businesses. I think these businesses were faced, many of them, with certain closure, and we heard stories in the media about the enormous rate bills faced by these businesses. And Chair, this rise potentially combined with many other pressures, increased utility bills, staffing costs, national insurance contributions, all of that, I think it all was a perfect storm for our businesses. And so this news has come with some relief amongst our business communities. But I think what we as a council should consider, Chair, and we have considered it, is really what value do we place on our business communities? those business people who work to provide hospitality and other services within our towns and villages. We would be lost without them, Chair. And sadly, many of us will be aware of wonderful businesses in the hospitality sector that have been forced to close their doors owing to really lack of financial viability. So I think we need to keep our finger on the pulse in this regard and look very carefully at what we as a local government authority can do to lobby and support our business communities. But for now, this is welcome news, and I certainly am very glad and relieved to hear of this development, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor Roof.
Thanks, Chair. And it is glad to see the reversal of the decision to implement Reval 26. But part of the process that we had as council to get our rates to the point where it needed to be, we had some detail on how it was going to affect, but we had no idea of the scale at which it was going to impact the hospitality sector. And for melanoma, it's a huge part of our industry. And not only was it going to affect the hospitality sector, it was almost exclusively going to affect the hospitality sector. Because when I went on to the Reval 26 to look at the rates changes to other properties across Enniskillen, certainly, the vast majority of other properties that were not hospitality, there had been no change in their rate in the last 3 years whatsoever. So we were asking certain hospitality premises to double or more their rate increase, and yet other businesses were actually going to get in the grand scheme of things a reduction, which is a crazy point to be at, and I don't really understand how it got to this point that the minister did not pick that up. And it managed to get published, because really that was such a straightforward point to look at, that there was no change for other areas, but this huge drastic change that would have completely crippled the hospitality sector across Northern Ireland.
Okay. I want to add something. In the course of my conversations with hospitality providers, one of them told me that there was an obvious gap in LPS staffing levels in the 6-month period prior to this. I've evidence for it there, quite specific evidence, where the LPS person declared that they weren't familiar with the hospitality industry, wasn't sure what to do, and said they were the only person on that week in respect of counties Tyrone and Fermanagh. So a local business that I know tried to engage and couldn't secure engagement in the 6-month period, so this thing of, talk to LPS, I'm going to propose that we write to LPS to check in on their staffing levels for counties Tyrone and Fermanagh. What was the story in that 6-month period? And was the same person working weeks and weekends? That's my question. So I would propose that if anybody's inclined to say. Thanks, Councillor Roof. Okay, I'll go now to Councillor Withers.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I suppose the point you're making there is back to our resources and how well our public service are doing. So I'm happy to second that proposal. I suppose if Councillor Gallen on the attack again on another issue that he sees, he thinks he can attack Sinn Féin over. But of course, he's not willing to give any credit to the Minister for actually listening to the concerns that were raised. And I know going forward, he has said that he's willing to engage with Hospitality Ulster and the hospitality sector and go forward. I suppose the premise and the rationale for this is trying to rebalance the taxation burden that obviously COVID and events like that have now distorted. But I think it's important that the Minister now does engage going forward to ensure there's a fair, open, transparent process and that all businesses, including hospitality, are treated fairly going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much. So, okay, proposed and seconded and agreed, members. Okay, thank you. Other correspondence as we
Yes.
carry on?
Okay, so Chair, we have 8 items of other correspondence in your folder. 3 of them were dealt with in the course of the agenda.
And that's good news.
So the second item then is just notification from IMTAC of their intention to recruit new members. We've enclosed the details there for you, councillors. It may be something members have an interest in, or maybe to disseminate to some of your networks. So just ready for noting, please.
Okay, proposer to note, Councillor McGrath and Councillor Buchanan, thanks very much. Proposed and seconded and agreed. Next one.
Okay, Chair, the next item I'm sure will be of interest. It's an update from the Electoral Office on the May 2027 elections. We'll obviously be reporting to you more formally on this, but I suppose what I would just highlight is the last page, or second last page of the presentation, which essentially sets out the main challenges. So I suppose this will be the first dual election since 2011. There will be a couple of centralised counting stations for the Assembly election, and the likelihood is that the local council counts won't commence until Monday the 10th of May. And the legislation is sort of progressing as well. So we'll bring a more substantive update, Chair. I understand the Electoral Office will be engaging directly with parties, as I know there may be some logistical matters that need to be considered. So really just proposer and seconder to note, please.
Okay, and Alison, our own officials, yourself included, do be involved in meetings and training exercises in relation to this, isn't that right?
That's right, Chair. And I think as of last week, it was 471 days to go. So
Okay.
not that we're counting.
That's right. That's right. Shirley's canvassing already. Young McColgan's on the Gorton Road flat out. Okay. So proposer and seconded to note. Councillor Elaine Bruff proposes and Councillor Riley seconds. Thank you. Tommy was willing to there, Tommy McGuire. Coramayogat, Hamash. Next up.
Thanks, Chair. So we move then to item 5. Item 4 was dealt with in the agenda. It's an update from DFC, and this is in relation to the impact of cost of living. And I suppose it's specifically in relation to the various submissions that were made regarding the anti-poverty consultation or strategy consultation. So the department's advising those are all being considered. And in the meantime, they're just advising of the information currently available on financial hardship.
Okay. And again, proposer to note would be welcome. Okay, Councillor Tommy McGuire and Councillor Brown, thank you. Proposed and seconded and agreed members. Next up.
Yes. Chair, the next item is from the National Association of Councillors, NAC, and they're seeking an opportunity to provide a presentation, an update to the Council. So the normal arrangement, Chair, if members were minded to accept this, was that we would just arrange an informal meeting, and then obviously all members would be invited to that.
Councillor Coyle.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, as a member of the NAC, I support this and propose
the informal meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'll second that we have an informal meeting with the NEC. Thank you.
Okay, great job. Proposed, seconded and agreed. Thank you.
Okay, and Chair, then the last item of correspondence in the other folder, it relates to the competition for the UK Town of Culture. So the details are set out in the correspondence. In essence, it's really a 2-stage process. The first is broadly an expression of interest, the deadline for which would have to be completed by the end of March. That then would develop really a shortlist who would be asked to submit more detailed proposals, and there would be a budget available for that, and then ultimately the competition would follow. So I suppose it's to get view this evening, Chair, as to whether or not something members would wish us to engage in and participate in. We would need to know really this evening, as it's quite a tight time frame for a submission to be made. And in the event, Chair, that we were proposing to make a submission, we would certainly need to seek some support to allow that to be developed to the required standard.
Okay, Councillor McCloughy has indicated first.
Yeah, I was just seeking a point of clarity from the Chief Executive, Chair, if you don't mind. It mentions medium, mid and large. I know Enniskillen and Omagh are slightly different in some competitions. And I'm wondering, would that be the case in this one, or are we not sure?
So, Chair, we've sought some clarity on that. My understanding, and we obviously haven't worked through the detail of how the submission might look. But a dual bid potentially would be accepted. So in that both towns could actually be considered and then would be classified within the wider categorisation. There would be different aspects to the cultural offering in both towns. It may be, now it may not be well regarded, but it could also be quite novel and might be a little bit different. So we would be working at this stage on the basis of they're likely to be a dual submission would be probably our recommendation. But we would need a bit more clarification from the organisers around the eligibility. So far we think it's okay, and the detail of how that would be worked through.
Councillor Thompson. Sorry, I'll come back to you then, John.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, then, thank you, Chair. On the back of what the Chief Executive has said, I believe that both Enniskillen and Omagh bring an awful lot to the table in a cultural aspect, both show bands and history and just the whole wider cultural aspects. So I believe we as a council would be negligent if we didn't put in into this competition, and the fact that it's both towns, I'd hope maybe that they would have been able to put in two separate, but if we can put it in as a joint, well then that's acceptable as well. Then we're not making differences between Omagh and Enniskillen as well. So I'd be happy to propose that.
Okay, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. Following on from Councillor McCloughery, I think this is an excellent idea, and it's one not to be missed, in my opinion. We'll not argue about which town's the largest. I know which one is the largest, but we'll not go there. And I think I'm happy enough to second what Councillor McCloughery has proposed. Thank you.
Okay, want to go to Councillor Roof now.
Thanks, Chair. Just to clarify, I don't know if it's been mentioned there, but small town on the guidance is under 20,000, and then medium town is 20 to 75,000. Now, I know what Enniskillen is. I'm not really sure what Omagh's numbers are, but if that kind of adds a bit of clarity.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking around the room for any other expressions of interest. Okay, happy to proceed, members. Okay, that's agreed, members. Okay.
That concludes the correspondence.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, we're at item 12, to consider delegation of council powers to the following committees in February 2026. Okay, so there's three in question here. Alison, would you like to explain the three?
Yes, Chair. In all cases, the reason for the request of council powers are the deadlines of responses, which are all consultation responses from the relevant government departments, and they will all fall before the March council meeting.
Okay. So I'll take a proposer and a seconder for the adoption of that. Councillor Hayes proposed, Councillor Robinson seconded. Thank you very much. Errol, I could have went to you there. You were supporting that. Okay. And that's agreed, members. So now we're at item 13 in the agenda. Part 2 of the meeting will be confidential business, as you know. But before we get there, we're dealing with our motion, and notice has been sent of this motion about the local growth fund, and there has been an amendment tabled as well. So the motion is tabled by Councillor Brown and Councillor Hayes, and then the Democratic Unionist Party amendment is forwarded by Councillor Buchanan and Councillor Robinson. Okay, thank you very much. So obviously we'll hear the motion first and foremost, and we go now to Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair.
5 minutes.
Yeah, this is in relation to a looming crisis for our community and voluntary sector, and it's related to the ending of the Shared Prosperity Fund and the replacement, which is the Local Growth Fund. And it's the 31st of March. The Shared Prosperity Fund is going to end, and as a result, hundreds of jobs are now at risk. The Shared Prosperity Fund is one of the most significant levers that we have in tackling economic inactivity, and it provides thousands of people with the skills and training that they need to re-engage with the workforce. And not only are these services a lifeline for many vulnerable people, but they actually support on productivity, whilst at the same time reducing the reliance on benefits for people. The new Local Growth Fund, which is due to replace the Shared Prosperity Fund, it's wholly inadequate, and it will deliver devastating cuts for the vital frontline services. Just before Christmas, more details emerged, which confirmed that a 64% cut was due to be introduced, and that came as a major blow to many organisations. And there's a prediction now that perhaps up to 650 jobs will be lost as a result of this. Now, we have to address the elephant in the room. This is related to Brexit. Time and time again, the British government told us that they were going to replace all the fundings lost as a result of Brexit, but time and time again, they failed to live up to their word. So the community and voluntary sector has been warning for many years that this was going to happen unless the British government changed approach. And we are now in a situation where in a matter of weeks, a disaster seems unavoidable. People are already receiving their redundancy notices. Very, very stressful time for those people and their families. They don't know what's coming down the future. It's beyond stressful for them, and my thoughts go out to them at this time. So these cuts need to be stopped and reversed, and the British government need to listen to the concerns that people are raising and change approach. At the time of the Brexit referendum, Sinn Féin warned that leaving the EU would bring economic and political chaos to these islands, and that we would all be financially worse off as a result. Unfortunately, that is now the reality that we are living in, thanks to the British government, and have to be said, they're willing accomplices in the DUP. Time and time again, the people of the North suffer the consequences of harmful decisions taken in London by British government that neither thinks of them nor cares of them. And more people are rightly concluding that our interests will never be served by politicians in London, and that a new Ireland represents the best hope for all our people here in the North. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Brown. I go now to Councillor Hayes.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I support and I'm seconding this motion as the community and voluntary sector faces devastating cuts resulting in removal of services and job losses. The Local Growth Fund, despite the usual empty promises from the British government to fully replace European funding after Brexit, this fund not only has a vast cut in funding overall, but proposes a split in the funding, with 70% being steered towards capital investment, leading to a significant reduction in resource funding for the community and voluntary sector. According to information from NICFA, these groups provide fundamentally significant support for people, including people with disabilities, lone parents, carers, and young people. It delivers tailored, person-centred support that the mainstream services often cannot, filling that gap and acting as a safety net for individuals and communities. They effectively address barriers to work, such as mental health challenges, childcare, transport and digital exclusion. And they maintain strong partnerships with employers, creating pathways to employment, providing flexible, holistic interventions, responding to local needs. These build confidence, skills and resilience, which contributes to local growth. The pressure on public services will increase significantly, especially health and social care, which, as we all know, is already severely strained. The local economy and employers will also be impacted further, and the loss of these services will deepen inequalities. These sort of programmes do transform lives, and they're facing a funding cliff edge. The most vulnerable in society will again be left behind. We need to send a clear message to the British government from this council that the community and voluntary sector need this funding and the certainty so they can plan for the future. There needs to be a rethinking, and they need to listen to the people here who have the knowledge and expertise of their local areas, and that meets the needs of the people not only in this district, but across the north. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much, Noeline. Okay, so I think I'll take the amendment later in the course of the discussion, because of members indicating, I think that's the correct way to proceed, unless, okay, so Councillor Stephen Donnelly.
Thank you very much, Chair, and can I thank the proposer and the seconder of the motion for bringing this forward. I think that it's incredibly timely. And I think that it is worth stressing from the outset that whenever we are talking about these community and voluntary groups, we are talking about the people who are on the front line in our community every day, providing the kind of services that people might not appreciate find their fruition or their roots within support from European funding streams, but that has been ongoing for a significant period of time and has had a transformational impact on many facets of our community, from positive mental health to employment advice to rural development, and many other ways that have helped to bolster not just our economy and our social well-being, but also our peace process as it went along. And the clear message that's coming from the community and voluntary sector right now is no more cliff edges, no more uncertainty, and just give us the space and the resources to be able to continue to do the transformational work that we've been doing for years, too often without thanks, whilst making a transformational difference in the lives of the people that they interact with. And it has to be said that this is the implication, the consequence, the result of the sunny uplands of Brexit, which we have yet to see much of the sunshine. This is what we have warned about. This is something that we knew that was going to be coming down the line whenever we were told many years ago, but with nobody believing it, that there was going to be adequate support following the Brexit decision. And we have to be realistic about the fact that we are in this mess as a result of that, and now we need to get a bespoke solution for community and voluntary groups right across Northern Ireland who want to continue to do the positive work that they've been doing, but they find themselves in this position of uncertainty as a result of a decision that many of them never supported. So, Chair, on behalf of the Alliance Party, I'm more than happy to support the motion.
Thanks very much, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Gannon.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's clear to say that we can see the legacy of the European Regional Development Fund across towns and villages in this district and across the north. And this legacy and the signs we still see up to this day remind us of the benefits of EU membership that we have lost against the will of the majority of people here. And then on the other side of that, we have obviously the European Social Fund, and it underpinned much of the community and voluntary sector for so long. And in fact, it transformed lives of so many people. And groups deserve, and these community and voluntary groups deserve and need clarity on the future of the local growth fund and where their funding is going to come from in future. But I will say the executive must take action and take matters into their own hands here. It was not only Westminster that pulled the plug. The executive previously contributed tens of millions of pounds in statutory match funding, but when the European funding disappeared, so did the match funding. And that's something the executive departments should look to reinstate. And the executive can continue to go to Westminster and they should continue to ask the questions of Westminster. But it is likely that it'll come away with nothing. We know that the UK government has made that clear, and we need a bit of leadership at home that explores schemes such as, for example, social finance and how we can introduce that to bring in work here. And then departments need to intervene to provide this stability for community and for the community and voluntary sector, organisations that provide vital services that are gaps in our public services in many ways. And as I've said, it does no harm to ask the British government for intervention, and that's why we'll be supporting the motion here tonight. But we just can't wait on the British government. It's been said they've failed in promises before. We can't wait on them. They've let us down many times here before, and the executive can act and needs to act, and we need that leadership here. We just can't wait to act when the executive can do.
Okay, thanks, Adam. I'll go now to Councillor Buchanan. How long would Mark have? 3 minutes. Over to you, Mark.
That'll be long enough, hopefully, Chair. Well, thank you for tabling or for accepting the amendment, and I'll just point out briefly my thoughts on it. Just the changes are in the last, to remove the last paragraph where it would be brought solely back to our own ministers, and just to amend the second last paragraph to call on the British government to work with executive ministers in fulfilling their promise to match European Union funding and in full, and to provide clarity for the community and voluntary sector beyond April 26. Our concerns are over bringing the decision making entirely to executive ministers. As members will know, as a party, we've been consistent in supporting these funds. The voluntary and community sector in Northern Ireland continue to deliver frontline services to the public and fills the gap where public services do not reach. Members in every corner of this chamber will no doubt testify to the impact these organisations have in their own areas. It's vital that this sector feel valued for the work they do. Ensuring stability and sustainability for services and volunteers is critical to ensuring the support infrastructure is there for those who need it. The DUP believes the UK Government has responsibility to provide clarity on the future of this funding without delay. It is appalling that community and voluntary organisations doing such essential work have been left in such an uncertain position. We want to see previous spending power under the EU structural funds replicated and enhanced, and we are also of the view that long-term multi-annual budgeting for replacement EU funds should be a priority. The motion focuses primarily on the quantum of funding provided in the Local Growth Fund. The size of the pot is of course extremely important. However, it's also critical that the priorities of future programmes better reflect the needs and circumstances of our communities in Northern Ireland. We have always been clear that the aims and funding objectives of the Local Growth Fund must align with the Executive's agreed plans for economic growth. We cannot be in a situation again where funding coming from the UK Government duplicates aims already covered by the Executive, or where Northern Ireland circumstances are not reflected in the development of this funding. Given the tough decisions that will need to be taken by our Executive Ministers in the coming weeks and months, we in Balance do not believe it would be prudent nor conducive in providing greater certainty to the community and voluntary sector to add the challenges facing our departments, to add to the challenges by devolving responsibility for these schemes solely to local ministers. It is a fact that even before Brexit, EU funding accounted for a very small proportion of the community and voluntary sector's income, around 3%. On the other hand, central government account for over 50%. In addition to charting a course in this area, we are clear that the Executive must protect this sector from the growing pressures on the block grant. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much. I'll go to Councillor Robinson now.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Okay. I do surely want to take Councillor Deehan now.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I want to thank Councillors Brown and Hayes for bringing forward this motion, which is very timely, Chair, given the rapid approach of April 2026 and the dire situation which most of our community and voluntary sector organisations face. Members have already alluded to the excellent and indeed essential role that the community and voluntary sector play in our society. And it's absolutely essential that they be given the security and the financial support that they require to continue their good work. Members will be aware that the Minister of Health has recently proposed a neighbourhood model of health in which the community and voluntary sector will play a key role. How can this sector be expected to deliver such important transformational work without the security going forward that they need to do their work effectively? I am in no doubt that Brexit has been a disaster for Northern Ireland in so many areas, but particularly in the loss of European Union funding. And I think it does behove the British government to work closely with our own executive to ensure that financially we do not lose out, and to make decisions quickly to give clarity and implement the new local growth fund. So I support the motion and I support the motion as amended, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor Withers.
Thank you, Chair, and want to thank the proposers of the motion for moving this forward. There's no doubt these cuts will have a devastating impact on the community and voluntary sector. And again, as has been already said tonight, it's another fallout from Brexit and highlights what happens whenever decisions are taken in London, in Britain, that do not consider us and then directly impact us. I think the amendment doesn't reflect the reality of where we're at or what the situation currently is, which is that the funding was lost. That was EU funding. It wasn't local funding. And the British government promised that they would replace that funding in full, and that hasn't happened. And once again, we've Councillor Gannon trying to attack the executive when he should know that the responsibility, as I've said, doesn't lie with the executive. The responsibility lies in London. And only whenever we remove their control over our affairs will we be able to move forward. And that's where we need to go. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much. And Councillor McCloughlin.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst the proposers have brought forward a good motion, they did make it difficult for unions to support it and some of the language they used around it. But we will be supporting either motion, either the amended or the other, the substantive motion at this stage. In November, our party, Robin Swan facilitated a meeting with John Stewart and a group of people from the voluntary sector to meet the Minister of Devolutions, Faith and Communities in Westminster to highlight this point. So we as a party are behind these charities. From April this year, Northern Ireland faces a funding cliff edge that is totally avoidable and totally unjustifiable. This will be devastating for our community charity and voluntary sectors, with many already reducing services, preparing to lay off staff, and others completely winding up their operations. Northern Ireland already has the lowest employment rate for people with disabilities. There are also carers, women, young people not in education or in employment, and which many of these organisations address their needs. Sadly, if these organisations collapse, we will see the people and infrastructure gone, and it will be highly difficult to resurrect these organisations. And hundreds of highly skilled frontline jobs will be in jeopardy and many will be lost. We need urgent action to protect the people, the services and the future of these organisations for many years ahead. Thank you, Chair.
Yep. Okay, thanks very much. Now, no further speakers, so we'll have to proceed according to the standing orders. So that would be to take the amendment first, to put that to a vote. That's what we would be doing now. So that's obviously proposed by Councillor Buchanan, seconded by Councillor Robinson. So we're in the business of setting up a vote. David? We're all in agreement, of course, with that, aren't we?
Do you vote the amendment? No, so then you
Okay. Okay.
So you're voting only on the amendment.
Okay, voting only on the amendment here, and there is an obvious division in the room, I think. Okay. Yeah.
23 against and 2 abstentions. The proposal falls.
23 against.
Yeah, and 2 abstentions.
Okay.
Amendment falls.
Okay, members, so the outcome is as follows then. 8 for, 23 against, 2 abstentions, so the amendment falls. Okay, so we'll move now to the next stage of this, which is to invite Councillor Brown to sum up on his proposal. Okay, Councillor Brown, get this off the screen first. Then there we are.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I suppose I just want to thank everyone for contributing and for the broad agreement. Just I suppose to say on the amendment, I didn't address actually in my opening remarks, but you know, Sinn Féin is a devolutionist party. We believe that the best decisions are made by people who live here, not politicians in London. And I actually thought the DUP was a devolutionist party as well. So it's surprising to me that they'd rather the British government make their minds up for them. So let's see how that works out for them in the long term. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Brown. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we're now going to vote on the motion as presented. As you know, Councillor Brown proposed it. It was seconded by Councillor Hayes. So again, we'll be setting up another vote now on the motion itself. Okay. I am anticipating possibly then unity on the issue based on John's comments there. So I think that's agreed, members. Okay. No. So we will go to the vote. Okay. We'll get the vote set up now. Yeah, good. Just a reminder to all councillors, please, to turn on your camera. I think most have.
Okay, so it's 28.
Yeah.
Motion is carried.
Yeah. Okay. So members, the outcome of that is that there are 28 for, 4 against. Are there any abstentions? No. So 28 for, 4 against. The motion is carried. Okay. Thank you very much. And then, okay. So now we're at item 14 in the agenda, and this is any urgent and relevant business. So obviously you have to have contacted the chair or Alison prior to the meeting to indicate that you wish to do so. The first who has not yet been heard on her issue is Councillor Colette McNulty. Okay, Colette?
Graham Mayoga of Caherley.
Yep.
I'd like to propose if a formal letter could be sent to NISRA requesting a refresh to explore and update stats on multiple deprivation measures in Dromore, and 2017 was the last time, so if that could be.
Yep. You're making that proposal, you know, to the relevant home. Where would you ask for that refresh?
Yeah.
So I think it's partly motivated by your observation that Sure Start projects and things like that.
Recent observations, yeah, that, you know, a lot of voluntary clubs and sectors have gone into the NISRA stats, and we've just seen that they're old.
Right.
Yeah.
Outdated, probably.
Outdated.
Okay, thanks very much for that. I'll take a seconder for that. Councillor McColgan, thank you. Councillor Little was willing, thanks very much. And agreed, members. Okay. Councillor Feely, I think, would be next.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for that, and thanks for letting me bring this proposal up. This it's about the export of cattle from the south to the north to be lifted. A couple of mart owners has contacted me along the border there in Manahamilton and Ballyshannon, Donegal town. Well, I would be in Manahamilton marts for Chattanooga up there. And there's this time of year, there's a lot of northern men down buying cattle, breeding heifers in them marts, and also there be men buying stock bulls up in Carrick-on-Shannon, and because of Blue Tongue, the no cattle have been allowed shifted from the north to the south and vice versa. And I think this should be lifted because Blue Tongue, it doesn't spread from animal to animal and from person to animal or that. There's not like foot and mouth or mad cow disease, so, and it doesn't spread. So I think it has to be lifted, and we did discuss this at our agriculture liaison group meeting this morning, and I had support from the councillors there. So I'd be proposing that we would write to Brian Dewar, the Chief Veterinary Officer in the north, and June Fanning, the Chief Veterinary Officer in the south, and also the Minister Federa, Minister Muir. So that's what I'd be proposing.
Okay, thanks very much. I hope John's going to second this.
Yeah, I'm just going to say my writing's too bad. It's actually Jane Fanning is the Chief Veterinary Officer.
Right.
I'd give that down to the
Okay.
editor. So
No
I'm
problem.
happy
Thank you
second.
very much. And that course of action, that proposal is agreed, members. Okay. And now we go to Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair. Well, thanks for the opportunity of raising this matter under any other business. Chair, I and I'm sure other members did receive an invitation from the Women's Caucus at the Northern Ireland Assembly to mark the International Women's Day. Give to Gain is the theme of it. It is a conference which is entitled Supporting Women in Public Life, and it brings together women's caucuses across the UK and Ireland to explore key issues affecting women in public life, including online abuse, underrepresentation, and achieving a healthy work-life balance. Chair, it's actually a 2-day programme, but I am only able to go on the Thursday. But if the council was minded to approve this as an approved duty, it would be helpful, Chair, if that were possible. Thank you.
Okay, that's proposed. I would take a seconder for that. Okay. Councillor Coyle has seconded that. I presume other councillors have received that invitation as well. Would that be fair to say? Okay. Aye. Okay. So if anyone else is going along as an approved duty, Democratic Services, the Chief Executive's Office would want to be informed now in this meeting. So that's that. We'll move on. Okay. Councillor Hoggs is next. Shirley.
Thank you, Chair. My issue actually is to do with carers in the community. I have had a retired gentleman and his family has approached me recently. He's terminally ill and he needs carers on a daily basis. He lives alone, his siblings are elderly, and his own family lives and works in England. This man is receiving treatment. He gets dizzy, he falls often, and he's not able to manage. And therefore, the family is urgently requiring carers. But they have been told, because of bed blocking in hospitals, that the hospital and social workers obviously are now focusing on getting these patients home. But then that raises a question, where does that leave someone in the community? Where are they on this list? So I would like us as a council to write to the Trust for an update on this situation, especially as on the Health and Social Care Committee, they have spoke often about bed blocking, and I would like to ask, have they made any progress on this situation? And you know, how do they propose, or how do people in the community, do they have to go to hospital and then become part of this cycle now to get carers?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Debbie, may you wish to second this?
Yes, 100% I do.
Okay, thank you. And that's suitable to keep it brief.
Yeah,
And
no, that's fine. Yeah,
as you're
it's very
doing.
late, but 100%.
Thanks
big
very
problem.
much. Okay.
Maybe expressing an interest.
Aye. Do you want to maybe press your, oh, sorry, you do, but you're second in queue, but I know what you're at, Mark. Okay.
Thank you, Chair, and I just declare on that last item. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, and I wouldn't be widening the debate, but Rosemary might have a technical point to make.
Well, it's not a technical point. It's just looking just for a slight little bit of latitude to add into that. There's a particular problem with carers. Somebody that's been offered a 4-care slot. They can get 3 of the care slots, but they can't get the 4th one at night. And I'm wondering if you could ask the question,
yeah,
in addition to yours, as to why we can't
Yep.
get night carers.
Okay.
Is that
Thanks very much, Rosemary. It's great. And so that's proposed and agreed, members. Proposed, seconded and agreed. Okay. Now, I have 2 more councillors in this section, and it would be Nolene Hayes, and then I want to come back to Paul about another matter to do with litter. But I'll go first to Nolene Hayes. Okay. Okay,
Minutes ago.
I'll take it now. Okay, so I've got a proposer in John McClachary, the seconder in Errol Thompson. So that's agreed, members, that we extend the meeting in the certain knowledge that we can complete the business, okay? That's agreed. So go now till Councillor Hayes.
Thank you, Chair. February is LGBTQI plus History Month. So I'm proposing that we light up the council buildings to mark this. The community has had much bigotry and hate directed towards them, especially in the last few years. So in the interest of recognition of this by the council, as diversity ambassador, I think it's important to let them know by this small gesture that they are a welcome part of our community and actually very much valued. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Donnelly.
Chair, thank you very much for letting me in. And can I just say that I thoroughly support that proposal from Councillor Hayes. I think that's an excellent one, that we provide that recognition to that vital part of our community. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to anticipate agreement with that. Okay, that's agreed, members. Okay, Councillor Buchanan.
Sorry, Chair, I'd like to record my disagreement with that,
Okay,
please.
thank you. Councillor Robinson.
And me also.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Mahan.
And Councillor Mahan online.
Thank you also, Chair. I'd like to disagree with that. And apologies for being late. Thank
You're
you.
okay. Thank you, David. Okay, so that's that matter dealt with.
Councillor Robinson. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and I want to go back to Councillor Robinson now for his own item.
Thank you, Chair. A lot of people raised this issue with me about rural countryside roads. The amount of litter and stuff was fired out of vehicles going along the road onto the grass is serious getting. I've never seen it like it. It's getting worse every month. And every time you clean it up, I would clean my road there a couple of months. Every couple of months I'd take out a bag and I'd gather rubbish of it. And inside a week, it's as bad as ever again. You know, is anything we could do to try and stop this? Because it's also affecting the farmers as well. Young lambs not there, blows through the hedges. Wee lambs be eating at it, cows be stuck on the tile stuff. The sticks in them, lose an animal.
Yep.
You know, it's costing the farmers a fortune too at the same time. So, and then we're supposed to be a tourist county. It's a disgrace to see the rural roads, the shape they're in with litter. So maybe there's something we can do or address to do something about it.
Okay, John.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I suppose just agreeing with the member in terms of just it is an ongoing challenge. Actually, tomorrow night's Environmental Services Committee, there is a report on the work that we've been doing over the last year with Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful. And I think that's maybe an opportunity. We can certainly go into it more, but there are a number of schemes that we already operate through the council, a number of schemes like Adopt a Spot and, encouraging community litter picks. But I think the underlying challenge is actually changing behaviours and educating people as to the detrimental impacts that it has in terms of marine litter across right across the district, but particularly in rural areas, and the impacts on livestock and biodiversity as well.
Okay, thank you. I presume in a quarter of a mile stretch, Paul, you could lift 50 items, couldn't you? Far more. You know, a very short stretch of road, there could be 100 items, couldn't there? You know, like between bottles and cans and wrappers, different things. It's serious.
Yeah.
Okay, so got a proposal that, we keep this on the agenda, that John gives us report back on initiatives associated with this. I need a seconder for that. Okay, Councillor Coyle.
Thanks, Chair. I will second that because I don't think there's anything worse. I mean, the people at fault here, the people that are actually chucking the rubbish out of their car windows most of the time, chip papers, various burger boxes, cans of drink, bottles of drink. I don't know how we can change behaviours, but I think if there's, some work being done that we can encourage people just not to do this because like Paul has said, you can go out there and pick it up 100 times, but somebody will come along in a car and just throw it all out again. It's disgusting behaviour, and maybe some campaign, maybe joining up with schools as well, because it's not necessarily the young people themselves, but it's, you know, it's the adults, obviously, because they're driving the cars, and that's where I would see most of it. So definitely support that.
Errol, briefly.
Yeah, Chair, following on from that, I suppose in past times, this council and its legacy over this council done a lot of work with regard to educating children at primary and post-primary levels. And some of those children went on to take part in competitions Northern Ireland wide and indeed UK wide. So maybe it's something that from the Environment and Place Department that we can get maybe some officers involved with that.
Final reply here, John.
Well, so, Chair, just to reassure members, from Annaloma District Council still deliver those programmes and deliver them at pace. And I think there are opportunities. So we bring a report back on what those opportunities are. There are a number of issues. I mean, things that were mentioned there around fast food wrappers and disposal of aluminium cans. So things like the deposit return scheme that are coming into the waste environment, also the extended producer responsibility. They do provide some opportunities for all councils to do more, but education is going to be the secret of the term.
Okay, so that's that dispensed with. Okay. Councillor Thompson,
Sure, very, very quickly.
Yep.
Thanks, John, for that. It's probably not as much in the public domain as it would have been at one time.
Okay.
Designated officer for that. Thank you.
Thanks to Councillor Robinson for raising the issue. Okay, so that's any urgent and relevant business dispensed with. And we're moving now into part 2, confidential business. So I would need a proposer. Councillor Thompson and Councillor McGrath seconded the idea that we would go into confidential. That usually takes a minute or so, does it, to switch over? Committee. We'll wait for this to be re-established. Thumbs up, and I'll ask Alison for a resume of what happened in confidential matters there.
Thank you, Chair. So while in committee, the council confirmed and signed the confidential minutes of the council meeting from January and received an update in relation to a request under environmental information regulations and resolved two further actions in relation to that request, Chair. Also confirmed the confidential minutes of the Regeneration and Community Committee, of which there were no matters arising, and confirmed the confidential minutes of the Policy and Resources Committee meeting. There was one matter arising, and it's been agreed that we would write back to the Northern Ireland Environment Agency seeking further clarification on terminology used in the correspondence.
Okay. So proposed by Councillor Stephen Donnelly and seconded